Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Ian Morrison. I'm the Electoral Area Director for Cowichan Lake South Scots Falls. I will be chairing the regular meeting of the Electoral Area Services Committee of Wednesday, April the 16th. Just before we get underway, there has been a huge expense of energy and brain power this morning by those folks sitting around the table and staff, and and our directors at home. It's been a challenging day so far, so and just noting that we've got directors with hard stops later, I'm going to ask that we all stick to our knitting and be concise in our remarks. And I would start with asking those in the gallery and around the room, if you have an electronic device that isn't on silent or mute or something or off, that you do so now. And with that, just welcome Director Martman and Director McClinton, who are joining us remotely. And again, I'd note that wave frantically, use your virtual hand if you want to be acknowledged and put on the speakers list. We have a fairly intense agenda today, and with that, I would like to call the meeting to order. I'd like to begin by recognizing the CVRD is on the unceded territories of the Cowichan, Malahat, Subasat, Halalt, Penelakut, Staminas, Liaxin, Pakwichan, DT Dot, and Pachi Dot nations, whose people have walked gently here for thousands of years. With that, we have an agenda. I turn to Ms. Boyd. Are there any additions, deletions, notes on the agenda?
No, Chair. Motion to approve the agenda.
Moved. Seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, the motion carries. Item 2, Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. We have a recommendation that the minutes of the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of April 2nd, 2025 be adopted.
Do we have a mover? And seconder. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, the motion carries. Just for those people in the audience, just note if you see a director not raise his hand when a question is called, they happen to be in the affirmative on that vote. So, going to the next item, any business arising?
No, Chair. We move to public input period.
Public input period is to offer the public an opportunity to comment on an agenda item before the committee considers the item. Public input period procedure policy allows for an allotment of 15 minutes where the speaker is welcome to comment on any items on the agenda up to a maximum of 3 minutes. This excludes items that have been subject of a public hearing. Input from the community is valued and appreciated. We request that input is presented in a friendly and respectful manner. Your cooperation in maintaining a safe, respectful, and orderly environment is greatly appreciated. And now I would invite anyone that would like to provide input on our agenda items to please come forward and do so. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Morrison. My name is Kim Bernard, Area B, Shawnigan Lake, Shawelican, and I would just like to offer gratitude for the wealth of information that's represented in today's agenda for the APC minutes. I believe it gives a really good regional overview, so I would invite anyone who's live streaming or following this recording afterwards to look up those minutes and read through what the representative citizens had to say about each of the issues that affect our region. Haitapka, thank you.
Thank you so much. Would anyone else like to provide input on any of the agenda items today? Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair and Directors. Thank you. I would like to speak to R4. This rezoning application had originally come to the area EAPC in 2021, I believe. And there seems to be quite a change into the potential uses that are being included in this. And mini storage, passive recreation, and food trucks, which I don't believe were entertained when it was presented to the APC initially. And would ask you to consider maybe sending it to the APC for further comment. Mini storage is valuable, but it doesn't provide jobs. And that's one of the things that is important in a commercial zoned properly such as this. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. I'd like to ask anyone else that would like to provide input on any of the agenda items. Just note for those of you that are applicants on any of the items, normal procedure will be where the staff will provide the report, will be questions for staff, and then after staff questions, our director's questions have been answered by staff, applicants will be given an opportunity to provide input on their specific item. Looking to see if there's anyone else who'd like to provide comment during the public input period. Seeing none, Ms. Boyd, next items.
Thank you, Chair. We move to delegation. We have Michael Pearson, Director of Vancouver Island District South Coast Region Ministry of Transportation and Transit. This is update on current planning projects and maintenance activities that the Ministry of Transportation and Transit is working on in the Sea Verde.
Welcome, Mr. Pearson. It's been a long time.
It has been a long time.
We,
Sorry.
would you?
Yes, it's been a long time. Glad to be back to the CVRD, and thank you for having us today. Today, we have a short presentation for you, and I have with me today Sean Haley, our operations manager for the South Island, and Nikki Schneider, who's our operations manager for the Central Island, who covers a little bit of the CVRD. And so, yeah, without further ado, I'll pass it over to Sean to start his part of the presentation, and I think Nikki will be working the PowerPoint. Sorry, we're just trying to figure out the PowerPoint here.
That's okay. We're used to awkward silences.
Do you want me to give it a shot, Nikki?
Oh,
There we go.
I think we got presenter view, but or that looks pretty good. All right,
Great.
the floor
Well,
is yours.
thank you, Nikki. Yes, thanks a lot, Ian. So it's been a couple years since I've come to speak to everybody here. This is going to be a presentation where we go over sort of a little bit of the structure of the ministry and our roles and responsibilities. We're also going to go through some of our completed works that we've done within the past year or so, and then we're going to talk a little bit about future works coming up. So again, thank you for introducing me, Mike. My name is Sean Haley. I am the operations manager for the Ministry of Transportation and Transit South Island office, and with me operating the PowerPoint, we have Nikki Schneider, and Nikki is the operations manager, my counterpart for Central Island. So the CVRD, it sort of straddles both Nikki's area and my area of responsibility. Nikki, we could go to the second slide. Okay, So, and yeah, sorry, the third slide, I guess. So I just talked a little bit about that. So the ministry, we have 3 regions in the province. We have 11 districts in the province, and then Vancouver Island is a district within itself, the Vancouver Island and Gulf Islands, and we're divided by 3. So there's North Island, Central Island, and South Island. So as I was saying, I am the operations manager for the South Island region, as you can see here highlighted on that map. And you can see sort of the area that's, I'm colorblind, but I think that's an aqua blue or a cyan green above the service area 1. That's Nikki's area, and we'll get to that in the next slide. But so Saltaire and those communities are part of service area 2. My area within the CVRD is Shawnigan Lake, Mill Bay, Cobble Hill, Cowichan Bay, Duncan, Lake Cowichan, Yubo, Honeymoon Bay, and area, as you can see. So I report to Mike. Mike is the director for all of Vancouver Island, and I have 4 area managers that work under me. Most of you have probably met the corresponding area managers for your electoral areas. I've got Francois Laurent, who's our road area manager so he basically looks after Highway 1, Shawnigan Lake, Mill Bay, Cobble Hill, Cowichan Bay, and Cowichan Station. And then of course there's Ryan Rowe, who's north of Francois. Their boundary is Boys Road off of the Trans Canada. So Ryan looks after the Lake Cowichan, Yubo area, the PMR, and so on in Crofton. So our maintenance contractor, you see here, they're MCon Services. So currently we are in year 6. We're approaching the end of year 6 at the beginning of October. It's a 10-year contract that we have with MCon Services. The contract may have an opportunity for MCon to accept an extension. Usually the extensions are a 5-year extension. We're still provincially, we're kind of working out whether or not we're going to be offering our contractors that extension or not. So we don't have any confirmation that that's going to happen, but they are approaching their year 7 with us. It's approximately $16.5 million per year for our maintenance services. The contract that we have, or it's actually a maintenance agreement that we have with MCon, it's split up into sort of 2 parts. There's a routine portion of the contract, and then there's a quantified portion of the contract. So the routine portion it covers things like, down stop signs or temporary filling potholes with cold mix asphalt. There's essentially no limit to it. The contractor can't come to me and be like, "Oh, we've hit our quota for potholes this year, so we're no longer going to be filling any." Or they could say, we've hit our quota for sign installations, so this stop sign that got knocked over, we're just going to leave it there. So those are routine. They have to do it when it's needed. Snow clearing is one of those routine items that we have. So with MCon, we're actually just finishing off our winter period. We're entering into our construction period. So the spring, summer is typically when we do most of our works. In the winter, we do have a little bit of maintenance that they don't really do in the rest of the province, just because our winters are a little more mild here, which is nice. So they do perform ditching and occasional sweeping and brushing and that sort of thing in the winter time. But we are sort of getting down and working out the details of what our quantified plan will be in this summer. So for our contact information, that's more or less what this slide is for. So TMC BC is it's our office in Coquitlam, in which you guys can call. Anyone can call. The public can call this. So feel free to pass this to your constituents. But that's if they want Drive BC information. So you can also go online just to Drive BC to find closure information. It's mostly numbered routes, but we do have a way of highlighting closures that are not on numbered routes. It's just going to show up as other roads instead of numbered routes. so that's a good contact to have. I definitely am constantly telling people to check Drive BC for up-to-date information on our road status. So again, I'm the operations manager. My email's there. Also, feel free to pass mine or any of the area managers' contact information to your constituents. That's totally fine. We're more than happy to resolve some of the issues that your constituents might be facing. So Francois Laurent, again, I highlighted his area, his contact information's there. Same with Ryan's. And then MCON services. So they have a 24-hour hotline. So that's if you're noticing a pothole or something like that, or just any kind of urgent issue that needs to be reported to MCON immediately. That's their 24-hour hotline. This is valuable because, especially for things that are routine items within our contract, if the public comes across a pothole or something like that and they report it to the 24-hour hotline, that initiates the response time for MCON to have that pothole filled. So within our contract, all of our roads are assigned classification systems. So we have a summer class and a winter class, and what those mean is they dictate the response time that we consider acceptable for things like filling a pothole or replacing a downed sign or something like that. So for example, our Highway 1 is classified as a 1A, so that's the top priority for both winter and summer maintenance. So if there's a pothole on a highway like the Trans Canada, the response time is hours as opposed to like a 12-hour or even a 24-hour period, which we see on lower class roads, so side roads and that sort of thing. Okay, we're ready for the next slide.
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So similarly for Service Area 2, I'm Nikki Schneider. I'm the Operations Manager for Mid-Island. So the visual here on the screen just shows where Service Area 2 is located. So for the CVRD, I have Ladysmith, Saltaire, Chemainus, and Yellow Point in those areas. I've got our key contacts up on the screen here. So like the previous slide, I have TMCBC. So that's for emergent issues, and that can be contacted by the public along with Drive BC. My email, as well as Bryce Pierazzini's, is on the screen. Bryce is my local area manager that I deal with directly for roads and operation maintenance needs with the Ministry of Transportation for those areas of the CVRD. For urgent safety matters, I do encourage that people contact Main Road Mid-Island directly so that they can have a quicker response time rather than coming to Bryce or myself. So I have also included Main Road Mid-Island's 24-hour hotline there, as well as an email address for email inquiries. Either way, if you or your constituents want to contact either Ministry of Transportation and Transit or Main Road directly, they can use the contacts that are up on the screen.
Thanks, Nikki. So we'll get into some of our accomplishments over the past year. As most of you can confirm, we did quite a bit of paving last year through our capital paving program. We paved the Trans Canada through the Malahat from Tunnel Hill to Aspen Road, and also Bamberton Overpass to Malahat Skywalk. And we also paved Shawnigan Lake Road as our side road from West Shawnigan Lake Road to Verlon. That was our capital paving. We also delivered some paving through our maintenance contract. So within the CVRD itself, MCON, when I say we, I mean MCON really, they did deliver approximately $1 million worth of asphalt patching in the CVRD last year. We also have a number of DFAA projects. So these are projects that resulted from the 2021 DFAA event. There was also a 2024 DFAA event. Luckily, the CVRD went mostly unscathed, at least from my awareness. There are a few sites along the PMR that we're working on from that one, but we're still cleaning up the 2021 DFAA projects. So we did complete the Briarwood Bridge projects. That was a culverts that actually, I believe there were triple culverts, so 3 culverts that were totally overwhelmed, and the whole entire road, yeah, there you can see it's not the best picture, the before picture. It's the only one that I could find before in making this presentation, but the whole road did wash out, as I'm sure some of you know. So that project is complete. If we could go back to the previous slide real quick. So that and we did replace it with a structure, so that's complete. We've got another project on Fairbanks Road. It's a statutory right-of-way project. So Fairbanks Road is currently in construction, and we're hoping that's going to be complete early May. Mini Road, we're hoping that's going to go out to tender actually at the end of April. And the completion is we're hoping around September. Renfrew Road culverts. So the Renfrew Road culverts are going to go out on BC bid in a couple of weeks here. So we'll get going on construction this summer, hoping that project is going to be complete by October. I've got Coxila Road at Norrie Creek. So the Coxila project, we're currently in design. So we're 50% detailed design, hoping that's going to be delivered in 2026. And then there's the Allenby slope remediation. So we phased this one out. We wanted to open the road. We recognized the importance of opening Allenby Road for the community. So we managed to deliver that as a project, keeping it single lane alternating. So it's currently a single lane alternating road, and it's in design phase for the remediation of the slope. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So again, there's Briarwood. So for more planned works, our capital paving program, it's kind of a hot topic this year. So this past winter, we experienced some pretty cold temperatures, and we actually saw some frost heaving, which is pretty unusual for Vancouver Island, specifically in the South Island. But there was some frost heaves that occurred. So some of our roads that were already in poor condition, or at least they could be in better condition, those experienced frost heaving. So we're sort of taking an inventory of all of these side roads that we have with asphalt that's pushing on 40 years plus. And trying to deal with the maintenance contractor on repairing some of that. So through our maintenance plan, so this is through MCON, I plan on allocating twice as much paving as I did last year. So we have almost $2 million worth of our contract value with MCON going towards paving. I don't have a list of roads that we're going to hit. A lot of these are going to be just patchwork, but I do know for sure a couple of the roads, River Bottom, for example, I'd like to allocate some paving there. West Shawnigan Lake, those are some of the more higher volume roads that are experiencing deterioration. So those roads will be getting some asphalt. All in all, we're about 5,300 metric tons of asphalt are going into the CVRD this summer. I've got approximately 146 lineal meters of culverts that are getting replaced in the CVRD this summer. I've got about $215,000 of brushing that's going to be occurring as well. And then through our capital paving program, we're going back to Shawnigan Lake. This is very likely starting, next week even. They're planning to pave between Verlon and Renfrew Road. Also a section of Shawnigan Mill Bay from Heald Road to Wallbank. So both of those projects have been tendered and awarded. Another project that I hope to deliver through our maintenance contract, I will be delivering through our maintenance contract, is some widening of South Shore Road. So I'd like to widen, I guess it would be the westbound side of South Shore Road between Myers and the fire department. I'm also hoping to allocate, which this hasn't been confirmed yet, but I'm hoping to allocate some funding towards doing some patchwork on the shoulder of Highway 18. So Highway 18 was originally, there's sections of chip seal road, and then we went in and hard surfaced the chip seal with some asphalt. And so there are some sections of shoulder that are not aging well. They're chunking out. So I'd like to allocate some funding towards fixing those shoulders, primarily for active transportation, cyclists, pedestrians, and that sort of thing that are walking there. And I'm also we've been working with the CVRD staff, Darcy, Vanessa, Danielle. We've had several meetings with them, kind of talking about drainage studies and partnerships on how we can sort of collaborate to solve some of these issues that are longer standing. So things that I've communicated with our engineers are we would like to do a study of the Couch and Bay drainage. We would like to take a look also at where Austin Place sort of dead ends right before Couch and Bay Road. There's a little park section there that did get completely eroded during the atmospheric river. So we're in conversations about how we can perhaps turn that into a statutory right-of-way or something like that. And also Kingscote Trail, I'm going to be allocating some of my minor betterments this year to doing some drainage improvements through that area as well. So yeah, we could maybe move to the next slide.
All right, thank you. Okay, so similarly, I'll go over some of the accomplishments from last fiscal, as in giving you a little bit of a glimpse into what's happening for some planned work next fiscal. So in Service Area 2, over 2024-25, we completed the Highway 1 Chemainus River Bridges rehabilitation in the first bridge. So a lot of you who've driven through that area will see that. There, I've got some photos coming up that I'll show off there. But it was a seismic upgrade and a repainting. So there was some traffic impacts there with some traffic management where we had both sides of the road going, or both sides of the highway on one of the bridges. We also did some joint replacements on the Haslam Bridge, which is also on Highway 1. We did also complete some drainage improvements on Highway 1 near the intersections of Thick and Edgelow, which is close to Ladysmith, as well as the Robert Street north and southbound protected lefts on Highway 1 in Ladysmith. Coming up for next fiscal, we will be doing some shoulder paving. So we have been working at this over a number of years now, just kind of extending the shoulder length and paving out the shoulder. And this has been in collaboration with some of the area directors to provide some extra space for people to walk on. So we'll be kind of moving forward with that as well, delivered through our maintenance contractor on Cedar and Yellow Point roads. And then we're also going to be working at the protected lefts for First Avenue and Highway 1 in Ladysmith. And that'll be delivered through our electrical contractor, which is RELEC. And then next up, I just got some photos of the Chemainus River Bridge rehab work. So just a little bit of the work that we did there, which did take some time, and I'm sure everybody kind of felt the impacts of that one. So that leads us to the end of our presentation and opening it up for some questions.
Thank you so much for the presentation, and I'm just going to remind my colleagues around the table that we have a fairly lengthy agenda, and that we're thankful for MOTT staff for being here. And I'd like to just ask if you could keep your questions to a single question. And if there is, and there always is, a reason to follow up with the staff, we've all got their contact information and we can reach out at a later date. So with that, I'll start with first in the queue, Director Deck.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the report. As you probably are aware, the questions arise frequently regarding the same kind of issue. So I'm wondering if there's any way, for example, that MOTT could have a frequently asked questions page. And in that, I would love to see some contracts. People don't know how often roads are paved and sanded or how often you're allowed to do that. So frequently asked questions and your answers to them would be so wonderful. Also, you know, yeah, plowing and sanding. And could I? So that's just a comment. All right? No, that's a request. Was it a request?
Yeah, I think
Does that have a
so.
question on it? Okay,
Go ahead.
thank you. Thank you. Okay. One more thing. Oh, thank you so much for painting the fog lines. And we're just waiting now for the lines on the pedestrian pathway, short as it is, and also on the middle of the roads too. So looking forward to those updates, and thanks for the frequently asked questions if that ever happens. Thank you.
Does anybody want to respond about the FAQ idea for your website or the contractor's website?
Sure, I can speak to that a little bit. We do have some information that's available on our TranBC pages regarding maintenance and specifications and responses for those types of things. So perhaps it would be useful for us to pass that along to you, and then you can use that. And we can also consider beefing that up based on some information if it's more helpful to do that as well.
Director Wilson?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, you three. That's good to see your faces again. Where to start?
You're only supposed to have one.
Yeah. First of all, comment. Your communications on a local level and your communications as far as MCON are concerned and the road maintenance, that I'm sure could be improved. I have had problems with communication there. But let's get to another thing. One of the things I'm so glad that I don't have to do is come into Duncan every day. Because when I do, it's stop, go all the way down. There is no synchronization, no logical synchronization between the traffic lights, and there are lots of them. And there is one way actually to beat it, but I won't go into that. When are we going to see some kind of synchronization there, which is going to let the traffic flow during heavy traffic time, such as morning and evening?
Who wants to take
Great
that one?
Go on,
I'll
Ed,
take
go.
a stab at it. For sure. And believe it or not, you probably won't believe me, but they are actually coordinated. However, I fully admit that it's not, it has its limitations. There is things that throw it off within the cycle if there's heavy pedestrian calls at one intersection or another. So certainly we'll have our traffic engineers review it, and they do periodically already. It is probably time for a refresh on the traffic timing through Duncan. So certainly could take that request and review it again.
Okay, and I'll jump in while I can. I know. Flooding and ditches maintenance. You know, I think, Mike, that we have a real problem in Cobble Hill, along the Cobble Hill Road there with Victoria Trust. The local MLA has been down there, I've been down there, and really nothing has changed. We've got to do something about that. The ditches really need to be seen, and the trusses need to be seen. And lastly, where are we with my four-way stop at Hutchinson and Telegraph?
Sean, do you have a one?
Yeah, so we are certainly looking at a four-way at Hutchinson and Telegraph. Some of the issues that we're dealing with there, it's as you may or may not know, that the alignment of the street is just, it's not perfectly square. So we have to ensure that these larger vehicles, we call them WV20s, but they're big semi-trucks essentially, or fire engines, are also have a wide turn radius, or buses.
Yeah.
We have to ensure that they can still make that turn. So there's nowhere right now to put a stop sign. We would have to, as you know, there's just painted traffic islands there. So we would need to establish traffic islands that also accommodate those big wide turning movements of vehicles. So that's the main challenge. But it is on our queue. It's considered high priority amongst our regional engineers. So I expect that we hopefully will see something there within the next year or two.
Okay, thank you.
Director Abbott?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Nikki, Sean, and Mike, for bravely coming before us. I represent the people of Cowichan Bay, and there are people in the audience today who are pleased to hear about the Austin Place improvements that are coming before us. I have a groveling question about Wilmot Road. I moved here 43 years ago to Wilmot Road, and Sean, you mentioned that they're showing frost heaves and wearing out after 40 years. I can attest that Sean, Wilmot Road could use a slick of pavement, please.
Yes, I am aware. I was actually just recently something was brought to my attention. The new fire hall there. There's some degraded asphalt right outside of the fire hall, and so Francois and myself are kind of looking at how we can allocate some of that asphalt to potentially fix the frontage there. But we're also looking at the permit that was issued to the fire hall to see if there's, because what's happening right now is they want to tie in their apron, and the asphalt's just not in the best condition to tie in. So we're trying to work with the fire department on finding a solution for that. So I imagine there will be some asphalt quantities that are going to go on Wilmot.
Director Segal?
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. I will send an email with all the inquiries for my specific area. But I do want to say that MCON is doing an amazing job in Mill Bay. I know community members are using that hazard reporting, including myself, and I see the efforts go in. Those potholes get filled, drainage, puddles get addressed, and my shoulders have been swept, and I don't know what it's called, where they kind of rebuild the bank up a little bit. So lots of great work is happening there. Thank you, kudos. But thinking about the region as a whole, I'm wondering how we could work together better, because I know we are desperate to take advantage of your active transportation grant program, and we have a regional active transportation plan, but can't really, activate it at all. And we are really challenged on a few smaller roadside path projects, just figuring out the LOU process. So please share with us what we can do at the CVRD to help, work that out so that we can get more active transportation in our communities.
Yeah, no, thank you. So this is something we're actually working with your staff on already to set up a bit of a workshop in the next month or so. So we want to work with your active transportation plans as well as our own maintenance and paving plans to capitalize on any opportunity that comes up. So I see it as really sort of two streams. There's the active transportation grant program, and then the projects that come from that, which we're happy to support. Some of those times are tricky in terms of getting through designs and right-of-way constraints and that sort of thing. But the second part of it is working with your staff again, just to identify sort of those priority areas. So, when Sean talks about we're going to pave some side roads, or we're going to have a major paving project coming up, what we're trying to do, much like what you heard with Nikki in Cedar, is where we can add on shoulder width or make some incremental improvement that aligns with your transportation plans and those active transportation networks. We're trying to move the needle on these things as best we can. So. Happy to work with your staff on that and do what we can.
Director Acton?
Thank you. I'm the area director for Shawnigan Lake. Thanks for coming today. You mentioned that you were here 2 years ago. We discussed a few things then for the area. Actually, first I wanted to kind of highlight, you never know you miss something until it's gone. So in Shawnigan Lake, we really do miss Tina Benson. We, didn't know how good we had it until she was gone. And in that, I'd like to give some feedback that our rep is completely unresponsive, does not return phone calls, does not return emails, and it's been very frustrating at our level. Even this morning, I just got an email from a community member just begging me to contact you guys and use our letterhead so that maybe that she would get some responsiveness on chip sealing was her issue. And she also had previously complained about a trailer that was parked on the side of the road. So the issue of parking, like people leaving items part on ministry land or part not, and then just getting told, well, too bad, it's not a safety concern. And we're saying, no, it is a safety concern. When someone is walking on the side of the road, they have to go around it, they have to walk on the road. Many parts of Shawnigan Lake, the roads are abnormally narrow, And this one particular item ended up with a car having to hit it in order to not hit an oncoming vehicle. So we're really concerned about certain safety issues like that don't get any kind of responsiveness. And we would also love to see some consulting, maybe perhaps with myself or community members, to hear that Verlon to Renfrew is getting some repaving is great, but West Shawnigan Lake is in worse condition and used more. And then also maybe talking to other ministries. We have different tourism groups that are funded by the ministry promoting the Kinsel Trestle, which is our largest attraction in the Cowichan Valley. And most people get there by West Shawnigan Lake Road. And it's really terrible right now.
Director
And-
Acton, can I just stop you for a
past
second?
Renfrew.
You got 3 questions in there, and so maybe
I'm
we
only
could-
allowed to ask questions?
Well, we're that's. we're
I've
in
been
this-
ignored for 2 years. I kind of got to let it all
Well,
out.
we're
but-
in the. Just I ask you to
Okay,
to
my
stop
question
there.
is, I
Well,
got a question.
You've asked 3 questions already. So.
Well,
Okay,
No.
can you wrap up with a singular question?
Those are requests. Those are requests. It's too late now to have any consultation on those matters. But my question is, the last time you were here, we discussed the fact that the previous rep had made plans with the community. MOTT had come to our design charrette, had committed to helping move some of these projects forward, aligning the village four-way. And then I was told, oh no, too bad, the funding's not there now, we have no idea what you were talking about. And also at Mason's Beach, where we've just built $1 million trail that exits onto a 3-way with 2 stop signs, and is a very open, weird intersection that is very confusing for drivers. And yeah, those two improvements were promised to the community before, and then we were told, too bad. And then we were told here, when you were here last, that you would look into it and try and get some movement there. And then there's just no responsiveness when we do try and connect with our representative.
Okay, thank you for that.
Question.
I heard probably 5 questions in there, so.
Well, I thought I only got to talk once.
But the idea, the idea was because of the agenda that we were all going to ask a question. And so I'd like to, would any of you like to take on any one of those particular ones? It sounds to me like a follow-up discussion with the area director is more than appropriate. So turn it on. Mike, would you like to take that?
Yeah, first of all, I apologize if one of our staff has been unresponsive, and certainly we'll follow up on that. But I certainly would agree that it sounds like there's a lot of, we have a lot of catch up to do. So we'd be happy to meet with you and have a separate discussion about not only like your questions today, but also the others. I don't want to rush just through one answer, so we can certainly set up a follow-up.
And then how about when consulting a little bit before projects are decided on?
Yeah, I think that would all be part and parcel of making sure that we improve the communication through you and the stuff that's happening within your area.
Thank you for
follow-up. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I'm going to go to Director Martman, then Nicholson, then McClinton, then myself, and hopefully we can wrap up then. So Director Martman, please go ahead with a question.
Good luck, Chair. Thank you very much for presenting and being, sort of inclusive of the whole Cowichan Valley Regional District. I'm Ben Martman. I'm the area director for the Diamond and North Oyster, and I think we're giving some feedback. Your area manager, Bryce, is amazing. So he's responsive, he's quick to get to things, and he's upfront. I think that people appreciate that. I appreciate, Nikki, the Yellow Point Trail is something that we're working on, active transportation, and the concept of, finding methods to get road widening, shoulder widening to merge in and work together. That will stretch our dollars. I look forward to that. With roads in our area, the thing is always around what's the most current thing, because that, whether it's school kid safety or snow plowing or Brenton Page Road, which is one of the things right now with communication about the road being torn up and people being impacted. So the question I have is around policy, because the policy around the communication on Brenton Page Road is leading my community not to have information. Is there a way to look at that policy to say, like we put up signs when there's some big developments going on, that would, a person could stop and actually read the sign and say, this is what's going to happen here. If there's things that a policy could address that would help communication. And the other thing is a policy on, when's the last time the policy for snow removal was looked at? Because there's a number of people in my community going like, this policy currently doesn't serve rural areas very well. And so I'm sure you've heard the comments, but is there a way, and what are you looking at around policy on those two particular areas?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll start with Brenton Page. So the work on Brenton Page is actually permitted work that is associated with the Chemainus First Nations water main extension project. So we've been working closely with them as well as their contractors and engineering firm to try to coordinate some communications. We've also received a lot of communication regarding just the state of Brenton Page Road. So we have been working on that particularly and trying to make sure that we take into account all of the community's input for just the drivability of Brenton Page while the work is going forward. So there is a little bit of a nuance for communication requirements for permitted work versus ministry undertaken work. So that's probably the disconnect that you're feeling there. But I am happy to kind of take that away a little bit more and take that into consideration as we move forward with those types of larger projects undertaken by other folks or other agencies. And then regarding snow removal, so snow removal is a specification within our highway maintenance agreement. So in all honesty, it hasn't been looked at since we issued or entered into these contracts with the maintenance contractors. So we're looking at something that's, not super old, but we're into year 7 of this current contract. So we have heard a lot of feedback for snow removal, especially on those residential side roads this winter. So we're motivated, Bryce and myself, as well as our contractor, to collaborate a little bit better and address services. So I know you've heard it a million times, but our priority is always the numbered routes during the heat of the event. And then we fan out from there. So open to feedback for maybe some of those impacted areas that would like to see service delivered a little bit different so that I can take that away in conversations with the contractor.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for both for the presentation and being so transparent for us. Thank you.
Director Nicholson.
Thank you. Thanks so much for coming. I think you have an extraordinarily challenging job. And I can tell you that the community was so grateful that you opened Allenby. I'm Allison Nicholson. I do Cowichan Station, Satlam, and Glenora. And just off the top, I would like to say I did have maybe 2 years ago a call from the person who was looking after the Coxsila-Norrie Creek culvert replacement project to talk to me about the impact on the community, and I really appreciated that. So very first time anyone from MOT is called, and but then now it's gone into sort of a black hole, so I'm glad to see that it's still sort of something's happening on it, and I would really appreciate learning about it ahead of time because I know it's going to have a significant impact on the community and I need to be able to warn people. It really makes a difference, all the little small things that you can do to bring the community on side. And I think that's been my greatest challenge is the lack of communication. I feel like I only call when there's a problem, and that to me is too late then. So it's like just small things. I know the school at Sunrise, they just asked for a little bit of gravel on their shoulder where the parents drop their kids off. There's a long email back about why we couldn't do that. It's just like, oh, that would have been such a small thing for the community and they would have praised you no end. I have an outstanding issue with an intersection in Salem, which is a wide gaping intersection, which community feels is a very much a safety concern. I know there's been an engineer that's looked at it and so forth, but nothing is ever done to improve it. So I would really appreciate someone looking at that again. And again, the culture of no is sort of my concern, and communication, but also this idea that we've got all these vulnerable road users, and we are so geared, it seems, to the vehicle. And, you know, in my community, there are lots of people who walk the roads, who ride bicycles, because we're sort of almost, you know, we're trying to promote this livable, active transportation thing, and it's all so dangerous. So any little thing you can do, and I often feel that my area, which is on the west side of the highway, is forgotten because there's more population in Cowichan Bay. There's more population, you know, and you know, if you want to talk about frost heaving, come up my road. But I actually like the potholes because it limits the traffic that go out to the trestle. So don't pave it, just leave it the way it is. Thanks.
Yeah, I'd thank you for your comments, Director Nicholson. I obviously I'm gonna have to follow up with the road area manager. One thing I will say is if you're ever having issues with getting any kind of feedback or any kind of, you know, emails back or correspondence issues, feel free to connect with me directly. I am very responsive. I've got my cell phone, and any of the directors are more than welcome to call me on my cell phone even. I hope that the conversation piece and the connecting piece isn't broken. I hope that we can repair that. If not, just come to me directly. I think that's probably the easiest solution. Yeah, and I do apologize for that. And hopefully that I don't like to hear that there was just a straight no about graveling a shoulder. That's something I can certainly look into before we pan out what our quantified plan looks like for the summer. So just leave that one with me. If you wouldn't mind maybe emailing me with just some of these topics that I can just look into myself. That would be very helpful for me.
Thank you for that, Director McClinton, and myself to close.
Love closing. Thanks, Chair. I'll make it brief. I only have one thing to talk about, and it's a comment, but I'll just say my comment and respond how you'd like. We're going into year 3 of significant issues with snow removal. 72 hours, the vast majority of the roads not being touched. There's a great person at Main Road who I connect with, and I'm just going to not say his name just for his own benefit. But so it's not the communication part, but I don't know what the arrangement is, but I know there had to have been hundreds and hundreds of reports about the roads in Saltaire, and you know, just vulnerable population out here that, you know, I saw a couple ambulances come through. So I guess maybe my request would be, can we get some sort of report about, because I know all the calls that go into Main Road are monitored by the province. I'd love to see some sort of reporting there. And like, do these guys need more funding? What is it? And we know our roads, it's very stark because there's one road in, one road out. It's perfect Ladysmith side right up into the boundary, and then the same on the North Cowichan side, and then you enter into just immaculate roads, and then it's mayhem in Saltaire. And this was the worst year, but the last 2 years we've had snow 3 years in a row. My snow removal plan is praying for no snow, and it hasn't been working. So that's my comment. It's a massive issue. I have documentation for all of it, Nikki, if you want to chat about it. So I'll just stop there and not belabor the point, and that's my comment.
Thank you. I hear you. We did have a number of complaints come in this year, and I will recognize there were some challenges. So it probably is worthwhile for us to touch base afterwards, just to maybe talk about some of the details. But much like Director Markman, we are looking at our deployment plan and making sure that our winter plans make sense, acknowledging all the challenges that we saw this past year. So I'm hopeful for some changes as we kind of go back into winter next year. But let's connect for sure. Perhaps me, you, and Bryce can have a conversation about some more details.
Sure. You know, and just to reinforce it, you know, I've got 24, so 25 people that have submitted pictures 72 hours from the snow stopping and the roads not being touched, right? I mean, that's,
yeah,
it was egregious this year. So, and also I know you guys have a tough job. I appreciate all of you. So I'm not trying to be the bad guy, but just gotta pass on the information. So
for
thank
sure.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director McClinton. So I'm going to jump right in and just on a couple of notes. The coordination of work, I think, I know governments have silos, but issues like having the road painted and then the tarring of the cracks after the road lines have been painted, obliterating the lines that had just been painted, works like that just seem to require different parts of your organization talking to one another, because it would have been much easier to have done the crack sealing and then come along and do the painting. Was mentioned by another director, when a commitment is made on infrastructure, and Mike knows what I'm talking about here. We made a big pitch for speed reader signs in Missachi Lake and Honeymoon Bay, and the speed reader sign got put in Missachi Lake, and then I was told there's no money for Honeymoon Bay, and different decisions could have been made on the equipment and the likes if we had known that there was only X number of dollars available. I've got questions virtually every week from people saying, when does the speed reader sign go in our playground area in Honeymoon Bay? I don't need an answer for that. I know you've already heard about it, but the question is more for all of my colleagues here. Haven't seen an annual stakeholder survey for a while. And I love filling those out because you get to really have some direct input into the contractor's performance and the like. So do they still exist? Do we still have the opportunity to fill them out? And do they actually have any connection to the contractor annual bonus that they make as a result? So what do you got on that one?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take that. So yeah, we still do our stakeholder assessments. The format's changed last year. We used to be instructed that each of, we'd have to do a handful of stakeholder assessments per season. And that was pretty much the extent of the direction that we were given. Now we're more targeted on who we're asking, and so there's communities, community engagements, local governments, emergency services. So there's a bunch of different categories, and we have to hit all of those. So we've completed our stakeholder assessments for this winter, but we'll keep you in mind for our summer.
I'd suggest there's 9 individuals that would participate in that survey wholeheartedly if we were invited to participate. So I'll stop there. I really want to extend the committee's thanks to the 3 of you for coming today. This obviously isn't an easy gig. I'm certain that many of my colleagues will be reaching out to discuss the items that they brought forward today and for some answers to some of the questions that may be unanswered. And this has been really informative, and we shouldn't be doing this every 2 years. I think we should invite you in after winter each year. So with that, I want to extend a hand of thanks for that. So thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you for having us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, next item. I just want to note that your chairs have been talking about trying to keep our meetings nice and tight and short, and I know that MOTT is a big issue for all of us, but that was an hour. So we are on what item next, Ms.? Oh, okay. We've got correspondence items. Given the nature of the agenda and the numerous items, would anybody be opposed to considering these as a block? You would be opposed? Oh, you're in favor? Okay. So with that, we have items C 13? We have 13 items that are grant and aid requests. We could do them individually, or we have them moved as a block, we have them seconded as a block. Any discussion on any of these items? Go to our online friends. Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Those should be on the board agenda Wednesday, April 23rd. Ms. Boyd, next item.
Thank you, Chair. We're at 7 information items. IN1 to IN9 are for information.
Director Acton.
Question on IN2,
Fire away.
Shawnigan Lakes, APC minutes, the 4th one, I think it was, about the local area plans. So reading through these recommendations, there are some really good ones. Okay, they're all good. How do we, what's the process, even though this is for information, are these automatically put in the local area plan, or do we need to make a motion here today for the board to adopt them, or what?
There's no motions required. Ms. Boyd, would you explain?
Thank you, Chair. So the comments and recommendations out of the APC meetings will be considered in forthcoming staff reports and bylaw amendments through the planning department. So they've received all these minutes as well.
So they've received them and are gonna include them? All of them, or
They are the
is there gonna be
subject.
some subjective picking, or who's gonna decide, or are we gonna see these come forward?
Ms. Terrell, would you like to get up and answer this?
Are these taken very seriously, or just as a little?
Ms. Terrell.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the directors. So the APCs were referred a number of items, including items on the local area plans and short-term rentals and temporary use permits. And so there's a collection of APC minutes there. They are for your information. The staff are looking at the recommendations that have been made by the APCs and considering how those comments can be incorporated into in-stream bylaws or work that's coming forward. On the local area plans, that item is on today's agenda for information, so there's an opportunity for discussion at that time. But you'll have subsequent reports coming forward on that topic and also on the MOCP, where you can consider, putting motions forward to direct amendments based on the comments that if they're not incorporated. So that opportunity will come. That wasn't very brief, I'm sorry.
In preparing the agenda today, these were separated out because of the volume of them, but also it wasn't the intention for this to derive or direct a series of resolutions coming from the APC minutes because they're being considered in future reports from staff.
Good, thank you.
They're all information items. No resolution is required, correct, Ms. Boyd? Oh, sorry, Director Wilson, you're right. I didn't hit the button there.
That's all right. Thank you very much. Yeah, just a word of thanks to our outgoing APC chair, Ms. Brenda Krug, and a welcome to our incoming APC chair, Ms. Janine Reid. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you. Ms. Boyd, on to reports, I believe.
Thank you, Chair. R1, report from the Development Services Division regarding application number SA 23F076001, Paldy Road, PID 00941188089.
We have Mr. Zhao here for us on this one. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a frontage exemption application. The property is located at 6001 Paldy Road in Electoral Area F. Next slide, please. So the proposal is to subdivide this property into two equally sized lots, each about 4.5 hectares. So the purpose of the design is to try to include most of the existing buildings, the existing dwelling and accessory buildings on the south lot B, and the remainder of the property which is lot 8, which is shown on the map as in the blue shade area. So that lot include the Curry Creek riparian area and a existing cabin. So each lot will have its own well and septic system. So the purpose of this design is just to separate the two part of the property, and because the lot A on the north side is tucked behind the existing adjacent property to the west, and the lot A takes up most of the Polly Road frontage. That's why the lot A will require a panhandle access on Polly Road. This panhandle area is sufficiently sized to accommodate a driveway, and the Ministry of Transportation has reviewed this design and has issued a preliminary layout review for this subdivision. So staff recommend approval of this frontage exemption. Thank you.
There's the recommendation. I would open the floor to committee to questions for staff. I see no questions. I see a question. Oh, look at that. There we go. Director Segal.
Sorry, I don't have a question. I was going to move the recommendation. Okay.
So we have two movers. How about somebody move and somebody second? We have a mover and a seconder. Is there any questions, concerns? I know that we have the applicant online, but the applicant may be pleased if it looks like there's a positive outcome from this vote. So I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. That item will go forward to the board meeting on April 23rd. Thank you, Mr. Zhao. R2, Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. It's a report from the Development Services Division regarding telecommunication referral, TEL 25E01, 2979 Allenby Road, PID 001048171.
Ms. Woods, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am here today to present a request from Rogers Canada that the CVRD provide a statement of concurrence for a new telecommunication antenna structure at 2979 Allenby Road. Subject property is located in the Coax Isla Business Park and is zoned I-1 Light Industrial. And next slide, maybe. Oh, good, I did put that in there. The proposed 41 meter tall, self-supporting mono-tower structure will be located in the northwestern corner of the property, adjacent to the railway corridor and other properties within the I-1 zone. Staff have considered this application on the merits of the CVRD telecommunication antenna structure policy, which outlines a number of policies for the CVRD to consider prior to providing a statement of concurrence to ISED Canada. A statement or a summary of these policies and compliance of the proposal can be reviewed in the staff report. And next slide, please. So based on compliance with the majority of the applicable policies, staff have recommended providing a statement of concurrence to ISED Canada with a request that an opaque, non-combustible fence be installed around the equipment compound.
Thank you, Ms. Woods. Do we have questions for staff? I see no questions for staff. Oh, I see. Press your button. Don't press it again. Director Nicholson. Director Nicholson, go ahead. Oh, there you go.
Did you check the viewscape from up above in the Eagle Heights area? which is west, not south of where we're talking about?
Ms. Woods?
So through the chair to Director Nicholson, yes, I did drive through. I obviously didn't go into the backyards of people's houses, but driving through Eagle Heights area and even Phillips Road, I believe it is. Maybe you could see a little bit, but it was pretty obscured by trees. And I couldn't see from the backyard, but there are a lot of trees on that bank, so it did appear to staff as though it would be fairly obscured.
My other question is about the tower that is at the Eagles Hall, just around the corner. So it seems like 2 towers in that area is a bit excessive. And, you know, they say it's not, the other tower isn't tall enough, and I'm wondering if there's an opportunity that they could work together to have one tall enough tower so we don't have to have 2 in that neighborhood, because neither, I think, are very far away from residential areas, which is an issue for a lot of people, in addition to the view issue.
Ms. Woods?
So through the chair to Director Nicholson, I mean, I can only go off of what the applicant has told us, which is that the tower was not tall enough for their required needs, and which was based on, I believe, trees and things around for them to improve Rogers Canada service. So beyond that, I can't say more than that, but the applicant, unfortunately, was not available to attend today. They had another engagement. Otherwise, I would suggest that perhaps they could answer that question a little bit better.
Seeing no other hands, do we have a inclination to move the resolution? Director Nicholson?
I actually would like to refer this back to staff and have them ask them if they could, if they have inquired of TELUS of whether they could raise TELUS's tower to a suitable height. Because there are no trees in that area, so I don't buy the tree issue. It's just a height issue for the tower, and having 2 towers basically adjacent to one another seems ridiculous to me. So I would like to refer this back to staff.
You can
to
make
have that conversation.
You can make that recommendation. Seconded. Any discussion? It's a referral item, so only on propriety of referral. We'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, Mr. Buchan. I'm trying to get going here. Mr. Buchan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I think we're just waiting on the slideshow. Perfect. If we could advance the first slide. A variance application has been made to allow for the construction of an accessory storage building sited at a 3-meter setback from the side and rear yards for the property at 3630 Cavan Road. In the rationale letter, which is included as attachment B to the report, the agent indicates that the storage building will include tractors, trailers, and other farming implements. Therefore, this is considered to be an agricultural storage building, which typically requires a 15-meter setback from side and rear yards. If this was a residential accessory building, not agriculture, it would require a 3-meter side yard, which is met, and a 7.5-meter rear yard setback. Next slide, please. Oh, I think we're already there. For context, there are 2 existing storage buildings presently located on site that were constructed without permits and are non-conforming to bylaw requirements. The rationale letter notes this and indicates that the intent of this application is to remove those structures and to replace them with a new storage building that meets CVRD requirements subject to the issuance of a variance. And it would be further from the rear property than the present building that's presently there. Next slide, please. Staff are recommending that the variance be issued. Staff note that the land is zoned for agricultural uses, and the proposed siting of this building would be in an existing disturbed area that would not impact the soils that could otherwise be used for agriculture. The building department has also reviewed the proposal and notes that the 3-meter setback is feasible for this type of building. I'm here for questions, and the applicant might be available as well.
Thank you, Mr. Buchan. Any questions for staff? Thank you, Mr. Buchan. Any questions for the applicant, or does the applicant have anything that they would like to add? Turn to the director for the area.
Move the recommendation.
Is there a seconder? It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, the motion carries. That takes us to R4, 4781 Bench Road. That is Mr. Buchan again. Floor is yours.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to reintroduce a rezoning application for 4781 Bench Road. This application was made in December of 2020 and last considered by the ESC in October of 2021. Next slide, please. The subject property is located in Electoral Area E at the intersection of Bench Road and the Trans-Canada Highway. The 2020 proposal was to create a new zone that would allow for a range of health and wellness related uses. Bylaws were prepared by staff for first and second reading, and the board provided a resolution to schedule a public hearing. When this application was last presented to the ESC, staff advised that there's no community water or sewer at this location. Therefore, the proposal would need to secure provincial water licenses and utilize the existing septic system. This would require approvals from the province. The agent has advised they've been seeking water license approvals. 2 applications have been made to date. One in 2018 for the existing restaurant use, which was approved, and one in 2021 for the additional uses sought during rezoning. That application is still under review by the province today. Next slide, please. The board also passed a resolution to require community amenities in the form of transit infrastructure. The applicant did begin to work with staff on securing these amenities, and this was to include the installation of bus stops and transit shelters. For context, the previously proposed zoning amendment would have permitted a parcel coverage of 50%, which is approximately 9,250 square meters of building footprints. Because of the challenges with water, the applicant has scaled back the proposal and is proposing to meet the existing 20% parcel coverage in the existing zoning, which is approximately 3,700 square meters of building footprints. Since there's no change to the build-out of the site, the applicant has asked that the board consider reducing the transit improvements, and staff have suggested requiring the installation of shelter-ready pads. Attachment H to the staff report speaks to the response from CBRD Transit, who has noted that there may be the potential to secure future grant opportunities to get partial shelter construction funding in the event that the ridership merits it. Next slide, please. As previously discussed, the decision of the 2021 provincial water license application remains outstanding. It's understood that there's some historic water use on the site, and the province will need to determine how much of that historic water use can be allocated to new development versus how much is subject to a new approval. Given the uncertainty with provincial approvals, the applicant has worked with CVRD staff to modify the in-stream proposal to reduce the parcel coverage and provide uses that are not water intensive, so that in the event that provincial water licensing is not forthcoming, there remains options for development. The proposed list of uses includes office and daycare, which would reflect the previous idea of a range of health and wellness related uses. However, in the event that water licensing is not forthcoming, there's less water intensive uses such as self-storage on the site. It's understood that self-storage is not the highest employment generator, but that higher employment generating uses likely require potable water. Next slide, please. The applicant has provided a concept plan showing how the site potentially could develop. And the image on the screen shows a self-storage facility in the back with a parking lot in the front that would function as essentially a private rest area with a combination of food trucks, playgrounds, maybe some shipping container shops. And this would be behind going through the Tim Hortons. This plan could change depending on the outcome of water licensing. For example, perhaps the office for the storage facility could become a daycare if water licensing is available. Next slide, please. Staff are recommending that the zoning bylaw be modified to reflect the modifications to the uses due to the challenges with water licensing. This would mean rescinding the previous bylaw readings. Staff also note that the Local Government Act has undergone several changes since this application was initially held, and this affects public hearings. Since the plan is consistent with the OCP, a public hearing is not required, and therefore option 1 reflects this. However, the board could elect to still hold one, so option 2 provides that option. I'm here for questions, and the agent is in the room.
Thank you, Mr. Buchan. Turn to committee members. I've got Director Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Richard. The thing I'm hearing over and over again, and let me make a statement first of all. The CVRD planning staff that we have here do their utmost to get things moving. They're pulling out the stops to counter some of the criticism that's been given to them in the past. And over again, we're hearing water licensing, province delays. And it's not just this one project that is being affected. This is projects all over the place, which are, I'm going to be careful here, are being stalled, held up, increase in price because, is it 2021 when they put this thing in, 4 years ago, and there's still no decision by the province? This has to stop. Okay, question. What can we do about that?
Mr. Buchan.
Through the chair, the modifications provide the options to continue forward with a development that would allow for uses that are not water intensive. And if provincial water licensing is forthcoming, then they could go back to the offices for health and wellness.
Good, and perhaps I should rephrase that. What can we do about getting the province to maybe try and work a little bit faster here? Because, as I said, this is not just this one project. This is projects all over our region here, and not just in this region, probably on the whole of Vancouver Island.
And through the chair, I believe Michelle has some comments
Ms.
to
Pressman,
that.
please.
Thank you, Chair. To Director Wilson, we're in regular communication with provincial water authorization staff, in particular in the Mill Bay area, for instance. We have a monthly meeting and are doing what we can to encourage and share information. And so we could request that they come and speak about the process, but there's not really anything that we have control over on water license approvals.
And I think the point I'm trying to make here again, Mr. Chair, is that the staff are doing everything they can and yet are coming up against huge walls. Thank you very much, Michelle.
Looking at my screen, are there any other questions for staff? Seeing none, does the applicant have anything they'd like to add to this? Welcome.
Thank you. I came here this morning and you guys are still here, so thank you for what you do for our community. I'll try to be very brief. I'd love to answer some questions. A brief history. This was previously the Galaxy site. If anyone doesn't know what the Galaxy site was, go rent or just look up on Netflix and watch Roadhouse, and that's what it was. So since then, I've made it a substantial investment. We put in Tim Hortons, put in septic, put in and received the water license for our Tims. Over the years, it's created, since we've been there, over $10 million worth of employment, substantial taxes paid, et cetera. So I think overall it's an improvement, especially the landscaping for the way the corner was. The Clements Center is a group that is I've been involved with, not on a board by any means, but just as through donations of time and money. And I am a huge proponent of the Clements Center. We've been trying to find a new place for them. It looked like this would work. Director Wilson, I agree 100% regarding water, but there was a combination of COVID and water that came on this one through this process. So, but I'll agree with you on the water thing. But having said that, it dragged on for a multitude of reasons, and the Clements have since secured a piece of property right beside them. So I'm now actively, along with many other people in this community, helping them to build a new center, but it'll be located in Clements, right across from where they are. So win-win there, lose-lose for me, but not. Through the process with Mark Mitchell and dealing with all our consultants, dealing with the CVRD staff at many levels, it has become the water regulations, the changes in regulations, the unknowns have got to the point that we came in, sat down with staff and said, what do we do? What would be good for the community? What would provide a bit of return, a little return for a substantial investment I made in all this land? And what we came up with was options and needs, and I thought a pretty creative option for this is, and it's already being used as this. I have 10, 20 cars a day pulling in there and dogs running around in that haphazard field that's full of broom and bramble right now, which I'd like to improve. And, you know, stopping for a quick rest. So we thought a passive recreation / rest stop, you know, you could pull in, relax, you can go to a Tim Hortons, the dog could run in the park, etc. We also thought that with that, there could be, and we've went to Victoria, seen a couple places where there's everything from small farmers markets, which could be the local, helps a little bit with employment for them to have, they could sell directly on weekends, seasonally, or maybe even a bit of, like I say, a bit of a marketplace or artisan market, but that could all be fluid and have opportunities in some of that area. Obviously, extensive landscape and cleaning up of the front. I do intend to send a machine in there soon and get rid of all that mess, but it would be nice to replace it with some natural vegetation, obviously drought resistant. The mini storage is the investment return. I mean, I can't do these things and I can't get this return on this property without putting in. The mini storage is something that it's going to be a little unique. One, we want to build I don't know if the picture can come back up, but we've seen one where it looks like a bit of a barn. That's the administration building, but also it works as a business hub. So the businesses, we can pick up their boxes, store their boxes, deliver it back to them so they don't have to go back and forth. It's been very successful in a lot of communities. So there's be like your box, your office storage type thing, and then the rest of it would be conventional or traditional mini storage. Water, there'd be no water. The water retention that we could get out of the roofs, there'd be no real water required. If the rainwater storage as well, so there'd be no water. We wouldn't need to use any existing water. We'd have rainwater storage that we could use if we put in a couple of toilets for the little community public area. The remainder would go to infiltration, which is an improvement for a small, but an improvement to the water table in that area. Our other intention is, and we're actually doing it right now, I'm the owner of Laketown Ranch, and we are putting on a 30 kilowatt solar system on our roof, which is basically going to run our festivals with zero electricity for a month and a half to 2 months. We would like to also create this to be a solar farm, which would more than produce enough electricity for what the minimal amount of use would be for mini storage. So it would actually probably be a revenue, not a generator, but it would spin the meter back for Tim Hortons. And the septic is already Vancouver Island Health Authority approved. It's all there. It's been oversized already. And if we were to add something, we're adding 2 washrooms. If that makes it through, you know, VHA and everyone, we'd have to apply for that. But it would just be 2 washrooms, which would just be for the rest area. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. I know everyone likes to throw staff under the bus. This one's dragged on, but this is dragged on for a lot of reasons, so I'm not throwing anyone under the bus. It was a combination of a lot of things, but I think we've come up with a really good positive solution for the whole community. I welcome any questions.
Director Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you for your involvement with the Clement Society. I know it does wonderful work, and anyone who's not familiar with what they do, I encourage you to take a look there, because we have a similar facility in Cobble Hill that was built by people like yourself. And this goes back to the delays that we've spoken about. If the Clement Centre had not found an alternative site, they would still be without one, because they weren't allowed or couldn't go ahead with your site. Thank you for offering one. And again, I'm going to highlight delays which have occurred not through any particular source, although I did name one, but that needs to stop. But thank you again.
Don't see anyone else. Oh, okay. Well, Director Nicholson, go ahead.
I don't have a question.
Okay, we're on questions for the applicant at this point. Hold on, we've got Director Segal next.
Sorry, I have a question for staff.
Can you hold on then?
Yeah.
Director Abbott.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Mr. Adams. Everything you seem to do in our valley improves it, as I've learned. Did I read in the staff report that you would like only to put in one concrete pad for a transit spot? And is staff in concurrence with that?
Yeah, there's been multiple communications with transit, with CVRD, and I believe it's one or, Mark, two pads? Two pads. Oh, two pads, but because not going to the commercial, they feel the pads are adequate, and then for future, if required, it would already be there to add more if required, to add the roof shelter over top if required.
Thank you.
My question is, it's kind of hypothetical, but it might come to pass. There is a suggested change in use by this application, and there's also a suggestion that we may not have to go to a public hearing. And there may be a desire to send this, because of the changing use, to the Advisory Planning Commission for comment. If you had to choose one or the other, and not knowing which way we would go, would it be, I know that you'd probably prefer neither to happen, but if you had to choose going before our Advisory Planning Commission to explain the changes and reduction in your use and demand of water and uses, or to go to a public hearing, do you have a preference?
No preference. I think the merits of the change and the support of CVRD planning staff, I think it's a very viable project and a win-win for everyone.
Excellent. Any other questions for staff looking online? Oh, Director Segal.
Thank you, Chair. My question is
For
along
staff.
the lines of what you were just brought up, the referrals. So it's mentioned in the report under the Walrus update, just that the new use will be subject to referrals. So who are those referrals, and when does that happen in this process? Because it's not mentioned in the recommendation.
Yep, sorry, I've got that right in front of me here. So that is looking at the Walrus staff and their process. So we're not entirely sure about how they're referring it internally, but that's their referrals. In terms of our components, if the board was interested in having a public hearing, that would be option 2. If the board was interested in having the APC, it could modify the first resolution just under item 3, which is speaking to notice being provided, that also include a referral to the APC, just for clarity.
Great, thank you. I'll follow the lead of the director of the area.
Seeing no other questions or hands, what is the pleasure of the director for the area?
I'd like to move option 3 and have it referred to the APC and MOT. And I'll speak to it if I have a seconder.
You have a seconder, please proceed.
So first of all, I'd like to say I am not surprised about this. We've known the Coke Silo watershed is in deep trouble for a long time, and they haven't been issuing water licenses for a long time. So, and it won't be resolved for the next couple of years at least. And so I think the thing that we can do to answer the question that was posed earlier is a regional growth strategy, because then we might get ourselves in a position where these unfortunate applications did not come forward. But that said, I really commend Mr. Adams for taking a really serious look at how he can conserve water and doing a focus. And there's lots of good ideas here. So I would really like to send it to the APC because they were very involved in as the site initially was being developed with Tim Hortons, and there has been quite a change with that corner being developed and the traffic. So I think it's important to talk to MOTT again. I am disappointed that Mr. Adams can't see his way through to do some bus shelters because I think they're important. But yeah, I would really like to see it referred back to staff at the APC for their comments. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like some clarification on this. Normally, we have a resolution on the floor, but would like to know what the implications are of a referral back to staff and whether we would get this back in any sort of expeditious time frame. Mr. Buchan?
Thank you, through the chair. We have had some conversations with MOTT, and their comment is that they would need to look at updating the traffic impact assessment and that they would have to approve the bylaw prior to final adoption. So either option 3 or option 1 would accomplish that because MOT would have to be involved regardless through that process. In terms of the APC, that could either be done as option 3, which is to send to the APC prior to proceeding, or as a modification to option 1 so that staff update the zoning bylaw, get it to the APC for comment, and then come back with notice done and bylaw readings ready to go.
As to time frame for option 1 and option 3.
Through the chair, the time frame for APCs, I would have to coordinate with my colleagues. I imagine that could be done within about a month or 2, but we'd have to look at the availability of the APC and confirm the timing there.
Any other questions for staff? Any other commentary? The resolution's on the floor. Director Abbott, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to amend the option 3 or go to option 2, which talks about a public hearing, but add the APC to try to expedite this process. The director of the area wants her input from her community members as well as public engagement, but this does seem to be slowing the process down for a property that's challenged due to as we've discussed at length today, water issues that make it difficult for property owners to proceed.
I don't see any uptake from the director for the area. There's a resolution on the floor. No attempts to amend. I see someone thinking about pressing a button. Are you going to?
Sure.
Well, that's the way to get your name on the list. Go ahead.
Thank you. I think we should support it. We're talking like a few weeks. It's been, what, 5 years? So this project's not moving forward quick anytime soon anyway. So I would like to hear from the APC. And we talk so many times at this table about how influential one person can be for their area. So then just having that communication with your APC or that input is really kind of makes us feel better about our decisions. So I think it's never a bad idea. Some of these things, it would actually be nice, we would be asked, or I thought we were doing this anyway, if staff thought that it might get referred to the APC, they asked the director, should we send this first? So.
Mr. Buchan.
That's it. It's just a comment.
Through the chair, the APC referral can be combined with any of the options on the table.
There's a resolution on the floor. Option 3 says information identified by the board. I think they're referring to committee at this point. So my question for the director is, the referral to the APC will be for what do you identify? Or I think staff had recommended if the bylaws were recommended for rescinding and a new bylaws drafted, then that package could be referred to the APC as this is what's planned to go forward. So I think we've got to be a little bit clearer on option 3 as to what it is we're referring to them and what we want to get from them. So Director Nicholson, is there something more definitive in what you want your APC to consider, or is there any opportunity for one to go ahead as staff have recommended with a referral to the APC?
I am specifically interested in the APC weighing in on the uses that are being proposed. Originally, they provided a lot of input on the development of that site, and it was supposed to be a medical buildings sort of thing. So if that is not to go ahead, the other potential uses are quite different, and I think really impact how the community will feel about this. And I think it's important to have their input. And I would prefer to have it before we spend any time drafting bylaws.
Mr. Buchan, do you have specificity for the referral in option 3?
Through the chair, yes, I can make that work.
Thank you. I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is our 5 Glenn Cooper or Darcy Mooney. Who's coming? Welcome, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. Purpose of this report is to obtain approval to submit a grant application to the Union of BC Municipalities for the Next Generation 911 on behalf of the CVRD volunteer fire departments. This grant was extended a few months ago, a last-minute increase of funds, and due to that, we were able to get in and hopefully get some CAD systems, which are computer-aided dispatch systems, which go in the vehicles for the fire departments and allow them to have real-time info from dispatch while they're on the road. At the present time, the fire departments have not been able to afford these because they are quite expensive. They work out to around $6,000 per vehicle. The grant itself will allow us to put total units between 2 and 4 units in each department. So the recommended resolution that I'm putting forward, it'd be recommended to the board that a grant application in the amount of $100,000 be submitted to the Union of British Columbia Municipalities Next Generation 911 for the purpose of mobile aided dispatch systems for their fire apparatus, with the CVRD as the primary applicant that will apply for, receive, and manage the grant funding. To you, Mr. Chair.
Any questions, or can we have a motion to move this resolution? Moved. Do we have a seconder? Moved and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Fairly straightforward and self-explanatory. Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? None opposed. The motion carries. I'd like to take 5 minutes, and then we will power through 6, 7, and 8. 2, 3, 4. Okay. Can directors take their seats? Welcome back, everyone. We have before us R6. Look at, there's 2 of them up there. Mr. Postings, Ms. Bowen, fire away.
All right. Good afternoon to the committee and to the chair. So we are just going to briefly walk through. You have a report before you. Just briefly walk through a recommendation that staff are putting forward in relation to the development of a policy for the Community Works funds. And so today was just an introduction of this. You'll see at the end of the report there is some timelines. We'll talk about that towards the end. So what I just wanted to do is I'm going to pass this over to Ms. Bowen, and she'll just walk through just a general overview of the actual program. Most of you are very familiar with the program, so there's probably no other surprises. However, we're looking at just finding some ways to make this an efficient process for both the directors here, also from the staff's perspective, and integrating this into the overall financial planning process, which is obviously something I know the board is wishing to see that happen. And yeah, so I'll pass this over right now, and then we're happy to certainly answer any questions throughout. So I will pass it over now. Thank you.
Welcome, Ms. Bowen.
Hello. Okay, so back in July of 2024, we did bring back to you the agreement to sign. So it's now been changed. It's no longer called the federal gas tax. It's now called the Canada Community Building Fund is what they call it now. And the Community Works Fund falls underneath of that fund. And so now this new agreement is from 2024 to 2034 is the 10-year. So we signed this agreement back in July of 2024. We got our first payment after that, and we got our second payment this year. So we have 1 full year of payments in the bank right now. There's been a few changes that have occurred with this new program after talking with UBCM about it. There's a greater encouragement for local governments to prioritize their own assets first, especially ones that need to be replaced before we on to new ones. So they're really wanting us to look at that. Ensuring that we're spending the funds within 5 years of receiving them so that we're not holding on to them and waiting. So kind of have projects ready to go. Projects that have been identified as local and regional in scope, including First Nations. New requirements around assets not owned by local government. So we have a slide to talk about that. They now have allowed the purchase of fire trucks outside of, it can be on its own. It doesn't have to be with building a new fire hall. So we can have them on its own now. That was never allowed in the first 3 rounds. Feasibility study and designs are now allowed to be part of using the funds. And there's possible additional reporting requirements for housing related projects. So that's something that we have to investigate. And the communications protocol has been expanded. So just they like us to have signs up and so that people know where the funding is coming from. Now for assets not owned by the CVRD, these projects must be approved through a board resolution and meet the following criteria. The board has identified the project as a regional priority within a long-term capital investment plan. The board has not prioritized the third-party project over a local government-owned priority project. So if we had to have a sewer system that needed to be done, we couldn't prioritize the third parties over ours. We should be doing ours first. And the project is supported by asset management planning. So for the policy, we've kind of laid out some of the areas that the policy will encompass. And we have looked up and been in contact with other regional districts and local governments that have policies already in place. So we're kind of pulling off of theirs. Ms. Miles Wilson provided us with some really good ones that have gone into more greater detail. So we're incorporating them into our policy. So these are the areas that we've already started putting into the policy. So it kind of lays out who has the authority, allocation of funds, with regards to the terms of the agreement, use of funds, in accordance ensuring that everything is eligible and the expenses are allowed to be used. And then just kind of following through all the other parts of the policy and the agreements that's been signed. So so they tell us the first round of the first 5 years how much we're going to get. So these are the amounts of monies that we're going to get for the next 5 years through this fund. And then now we're into the next step. So.
Well, just to open up some discussion, we'll just flip back to this slide here and just allow the opportunity for maybe if there are questions. I think what we were hoping is to receive direction, questions, any comments so that it will allow us, if the committee wishes, we'd then be able to develop this policy and bring it back, this draft policy, and bring it back for consideration with the committee here. And I think on the right-hand side there, we talk about a few areas that one of the intents of this is to develop that capacity, especially when we're looking at a long-term funding such as this over 10 years. It allows us to look at a long-term financial planning process for this funding and not just be responding year over year, each year, but looking more long-term. And we can talk about that if the committee wishes when we present the policy, but it would look at more of a long-range financial plan than, a community is receiving. It was I think it was 1.8 this year. Is there a way to actually combine some years and look at longer range planning there? So these are just considerations that would be part of the policy that we would bring forward. And then the last point there is just regular reporting and reviewing. I mean, obviously being a policy, if there are changes to the policy over the term of this agreement, we can come back and update that policy. So if there's some adjustments, we certainly can bring that back. If the board gives us direction, we can adjust those. So we're happy to answer any questions. And hopefully you also saw in the last part of the report, there is a next steps there. We do have a draft policy just because we've been getting some information. We could certainly bring that back fairly quickly, which is basically next month there if the committee wishes. And we can present that policy, but we certainly, if there's feedback, comments, questions, we're happy to answer those today.
Thank you, Mr. Postings. A good number of people on the list. I just want to start by saying I had this presentation, or I saw this presentation at the Electoral Area Forum, which I was very surprised to see the perspective of UBCM and how we might allocate our funds. Ms. Bowen used the word, and I can't remember if you said we must consider these core areas or these are core areas for consideration. I don't need an answer to that. Essentially, where I'm going with this is significant funding that for my first 5 years here, electoral area directors had a significant role in determining the list of projects, and there wasn't nearly as much eligible as there is today. For a period following the first 5 years, the last round, it was very much staff-driven, directed projects with very little electoral area director input. So I've now come to understand that there is no reason why we couldn't have followed the policy that we did over 10 years ago. Having said that, you're going to be going away and developing a policy to bring back for our approval, and you're looking for direction today as to how you would like to create the project list, how you would like the funds allocated. Is that some of the direction that you're looking for?
To the chair, at this point in time, not that much detail we're looking for today. First off, we want to ensure that the committee is supportive of a policy being developed. We don't, certainly, if that's not of the interest of the committee, then we need to look at different ways of how we're going to approach this. However, the intent would be when we present this policy, those questions that you just asked, we would walk through all those questions at that time. So it wasn't as much today, but we'll show the policy and it would be able to answer all those questions, and you'll see the different dynamics of what that policy might look like, the different components that have been noted here. I think just back to your other point there at the very beginning about that balance, I think what we're trying to find is that middle balance where there's the staff input relating to asset management, relating to long-term financial planning versus the director's prioritization of projects. So where it was probably 10 years ago to where it was 5 years ago, we're trying to find that balance. We've heard that, and I think that's a lot of communities have heard that in regional districts. And so we believe there's a balance, and the policy would help find that balance so that there can be that local commitments, but also if there are bigger projects that, I'll use an example, a fire hall that is needed to be developed or created, could one area fund that on the early part of the process here, let's say year 1 or 2, and then maybe they don't see funding for the remainder of the term. So the intent is to look at this at a long-range plan and address all the needs that are part of those long-range financial and asset management plans. And that's part of what would be presented.
I think great staff have great ideas. I just think there may be some direction that we can give you today that can help you to form the policy. I will go to the directors as listed on here. We have Director Wilson first.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you both here. And I think Ian's already covered a lot of the stuff with the how much discretion that we would as area directors. And the question I think would be, if you identify a project in my area, right, I know where the allocation is, I know how much according to the report that I'm going to be getting, and you would come, I hope, to me and say, we've identified this, 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 and this. What would I be involved in that decision-making process as to prioritise which ones, or would it be, we're going to do this, this and this?
Go ahead.
And also, can I have some discretionary funds for me as well?
Through the chair to Director Wilson, I mean, every single project is approved by the board in the sense of the allocation of that. So we certainly, no different than has been in the past, there would be, we would want to know what those priorities are. We would want to understand that based on, again, back to asset management or infrastructure needs. And so we would be presenting recommendations. So there'd be recommendations that would come forward and allow the committee at the, the initial part onto the board that would be able to approve those. Certainly some of the recommendations would be very specific to if it's a water system that needs that versus I'll say a nice to have, then, that recommendation, and then the board will have to make a decision on, where that goes. But input throughout the process would not change. The way it would happen might change a little bit and allow us to actually streamline the process so that it can fit into a more, like a stronger financial planning process, which allows us better communication.
Yeah, and so if follow up, please. If in Area C, you said, okay, I think we could say, and you have done a great job in the past. I've got a great sewer system. I've got extensions. I've got water pipes everywhere, which is really good. And that was all the old gas tax money. So in this particular case, with the new allocations, you would say, okay, Director Wilson, we've got this, this, and this in mind. What do you think? So there would be some consultation with me, right? Before it comes to the board.
Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe I'll pass over to Ms. Bowen, just in regards to this, because one of the other benefits, and I don't want to put her on the spot, is about the financial planning of the borrowing versus using these funds. And sometimes that's something, obviously, she can walk through here in regards to that, but there is some benefits to these recommendations and considering them the fact that, there is cost to borrowing, and we want to look at that long-range plans. But I'll just pass that to her because this is important.
Just want to jump in for a minute because I think those are important considerations, borrowing versus saving up for, high cost items. I think that's all important. That's probably for discussion at the next meeting. But I think in regards to Director Wilson's questions, before we had a meeting at the beginning, then for the next 5 years, staff came to us with a list of projects. I think what we're talking about here is Director Wilson's asking, are we going to go back to the system in which the staff met with the director and together collaboratively came up with a list of projects?
Yes.
That was the question he was asking.
What he said.
That's right.
Please go ahead. Hang on, your seat 25. Okay. Go ahead, seat 25.
Hi, thank you. I think, I wanted to go back to Mr. Posting's comments about how, we're doing a bit of an inventory of the variety of policies on the CWF that exist in other local governments. And as you talk to at your conventions, we're kind of looking at what are best practices, how do we manage the administrative load, how do we make sure we're building consultation with elected officials into the process, but also creating something that the administration can handle efficiently, and that really gets us scale on projects where we need it. So I think what I would, how I would respond to that kind of query about it is there needs to be consultation, but there also needs to be a transparent public process in front of committee about the prioritization of projects. So I think we're talking about both things. We're talking about inputs through consultation, and we're talking about a list of options to come through the budget process, as you already do anyway. So we're talking about both, and the policy would kind of help us frame how that works procedurally.
Agreed. Do you need to go on? Yeah, I think Ms. Miles Wilson answered the question beautifully. Do you have anything to add?
Through the chair, so just the other recommendation, like Mr. Postings was saying about the cost versus borrowing, we have this money, we should be using it. And when I started breaking down each person's little amount, I know there's projects in certain areas that you wouldn't have enough to do it in this year, so then you would have to borrow. So then if we were able to say, okay, this year we're take a little bit more so that we can get this project done and this project done so we can save the taxpayers money and not have as much borrowing going on and get your requisition down,
then we should be doing it that way. And then he brought up the great point about fire halls. We know there's a bunch of fire halls that may need to be having some work done in maybe years 2 or 3 or 4. Do we say, okay, year 4 is for this fire hall, year 5 is for this fire hall, and allocate that already to them so that they can start working on their financial plan to maybe start looking for grants or something like that, so then we don't have to borrow and then help these taxpayers out, because we are hearing that, yeah, we need to bring our requisition down, so.
Director Nicholson.
Thank you. My first question was, so the eligibility criteria that the feds have put on this, or UBCM or whoever, that's good for 5 years or 10 years?
To the chair, it's for the 10 years. It's just they've given us 5 years of the money.
Okay. So would you mind just walking through the core areas for consideration, what they mean? Like authority, what does that mean?
Through the chair to Director Nicholson. So the authority is just giving who has responsibility for what. So we'll list like the CAO for signing the agreement, the finance division for helping with the funds, and then the board, the EASC is who we bring the projects and stuff through up to the board. So that would just list that kind of stuff. Allocation of funds is regarding the terms of agreement, what is allowed and not allowed, EA project versus EA regional project. So when we talk about regional, we don't mean including the meetings. We're talking about, can we put more money towards a regional project that's going to benefit more, like the fire hall in the south? Maybe that's going to benefit areas A, B, and C, because now you've got a newer fire hall that can help more. So kind of pool that way. So that's kind of what we're talking about there. I know that regional thing gets a little scary because then we automatically think regional, we think munis, but we're talking regional as in a combined electoral areas, yeah. The application and approval process just ensures that we're going through, that aligns with your board strategic policies, and that we're meeting the agreements, and then prioritizing the CVRD assets, which we'll be working with the asset management group, because they'll kind of let us know where things are that might need to be replaced faster. And there's a lot of the other ones that we were looking at had a whole section on the proposals for non-profit organizations, kind of had a step-by-step what the requirements were, kind of had like forms to fill out and stuff that would come through to EASC to ask for money. And the reporting is the UBCM reporting requirements. Yeah.
And capacity building?
That's more for just today.
Yeah. Yeah, those other ones.
You're trying to build our capacity? To understand this, or what?
So, yeah, this was, we put that in there.
Yeah.
That was me. But this was like for, capacity building is just for, I think that's for ensuring that we have all, like, our assets and making sure that we're putting our assets first. Because we want to make sure that it's not capacity, I don't think, as in people. Because we can't use the money for people. I know that.
Can I make a follow-up comment?
Sure.
The one thing I think that we're missing here is some sort of principles. And that probably speaks to use of funds and who benefits. And I've always been very challenged with this kind of funding, that it would go to, because we basically run a user pay for services model, and then we have this money that the whole community has contributed towards, but then we potentially subsidize a service. And I don't think that's a very wise principle, but I get why we sometimes do it, because we have a serious liability. But my take is that we identified from an electoral area perspective all the serious liabilities on our water systems, and we spent a lot of money trying to fix those serious liabilities. So I think the principle about how we make those decisions needs to be really, really transparent. It also speaks to fire halls too, right?
So if I'm not mistaken, we're trying to figure out the how, not the what, right? Today?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Director Abbott.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for this report. Some of the changes you forecast is new requirements around assets not owned by a local government. I'm concerned about improvement districts coming knocking on my door for a new fire truck or a water system.
So through the chair to Director Abbott, I did phone UBCM on this particular item. The reason they've kind of added it back in is because they were finding that a lot of local governments were giving away a lot of it and not really paying attention to their own assets. And so you have water systems failings or sewer systems failings or stuff like that. So they're really wanting us to put the emphasis back on our assets and making sure that anything that we see is coming down the pipe of, we know that there's a water system that VHA has now changed requirements on and things like that, that we should be making, those should be a priority first for our residents to make sure that we're taking care of those. And then if we have afterwards, we find that we've got a little bit more, we could look at those outside ones after that.
Oh, what happened? Did you press that again? Darn it. Do you want a follow-up? Oh, hang on. Oh, wrong one. Director Abbott, try again.
Can we change the colors?
Thank you, Ms. Bowen. I'm hoping it's going to be clear that there won't be wiggle room, that we can definitively say, and it can wait. I just feel that is the government highly encouraging us to look after our own assets so that we aren't bamboozled with requests. Don't hang up.
Through the chair to Director Abbott, like this slide said, but also talking to UBCM, they were very much like encouraging that, yes, please make sure that CVRD assets come first. They weren't saying that the federal government would pull back if they started to notice that more people were giving it out to other places, but they were really, the emphasis is on our assets, making sure we're taking care of our stuff.
And unrelated, if I may, stacking. That doesn't apply to, Area D looks like it has approximately $1 million in the next 5 years. Can we keep all of that for the 5th year and rebuild a breakwater?
If it's a qualifying project, apparently yes.
We don't have to dribble away like $200,000 a year. Okay, thank you.
Just as an example, at the Electoral Area Forum workshop, there were electoral area directors that had money allocated to them through this process that had no sewer, no water, no fire departments, no nothing. And they had groups coming to them because there was no internal assets so that's why this has been opened up. But there's greater emphasis on saying, just because we've opened it up, we still want you focusing on your own infrastructure and assets. That's the message I've heard. Director Acton.
Okay, lots of discussion on that, good discussion. But it does make me think of sometimes these improvement groups, improvement districts can, or volunteer groups like the Hub can actually benefit the community with very little dollars. So I wouldn't want us to be too strict on those things. But what I did want to say was, I'd like to see a strong policy that allows for a large amount, like an 80-20 or something that we had before, because I'll give you a little bit of an idea here. When I first got here, we had a bunch of, I think it came in 2 spurts. The first amount got kind of like peppered here and there, 50,000, 100,000, 150,000, and it didn't do a lot. Most of the projects kind of sat there still because it didn't have the complete funding. And then we had other projects. Then in the next round, we 100% funded things, which actually makes it happen too, because things don't happen without money. But these were actually improvements to our community, like I think Director Morrison would call like play money. It's not play money though, because our community would like to see improvement that benefit the whole community. And we got the railway trail. We got a playground in Old Mill Park, like an old nature park. That wouldn't have happened without it. We had major improvements to our community center, a whole lobby design, sounding thing, so that now our community center was considered not very used, and now it's overbooked. And then I always looked at it as well as like not just giving to water system. Yes, like maybe if it's a water system, or well, I don't have any sewer systems, but we got one. That is in really dire need, and it's a low, we've had some like at Carleton, and these are just modest incomes, and we're like, okay, we need to help this part of the community. Fine. But most decisions I'd like to see go for the greater good of the community and for improving the community. If it's something where we can actually just start saving for our asset to improve it, I think it shouldn't be part of the list. And we should have a large amount of improvements, those nice to haves, because those nice to haves are the only things that happened in my community were from the gas tax funding. And they would have never even happened at all. It just would have been too much of a tax burden to the greater whole of the community. So that's my perspective on this. So I hope that the policy is actually very flexible, very forward-thinking of what improvements do we need, does the community want to see? So right away, if they're just pie in the sky things, well, right away I think, oh, well, then we need the feasibility study and a detailed planning for the incorporation right away. Like that to me is something that if we were able to put our money forward for that, we would just be in a better place. And then any other active transportation, maybe there's a couple that we want to do A, B, and C. And those are nice to have, but let's get some of those going instead of just, I don't know, if I was, let's imagine we're sitting here still in 4 years, 5 years. What do we want to have accomplished? Like those things are going to happen anyway. But if we could add some like real nice improvements to our communities, that's what I would love to see.
So I'm going to go to Director Segal, and I'd like everyone to try and, we're on the how, not the what's at this point. So I think to a formula, to a collaboration and consultation to come up with ideas. But Director Segal, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the recommendation.
What's the recommendation?
That it be recommended to the board that staff be directed to develop a draft Community Works gas tax funding policy.
We have a seconder. Discussion, I have a question. So we haven't discussed a breakdown as to what Director Acton had recommended around, 70, 30, 80, 20. That's important, in my opinion. Can that just be incorporated and discussed or brought back to committee future consideration or future discussion? I think how the criteria are brought together is important. Do you need specific direction on the project list development process?
Through the chair to director, to the chair. We could bring back a list if we want, because we were going to work with asset management to see what projects are out there. That looking at the assets of our vulnerability of assets that are beyond its useful life and needing to be replaced or fixed, or things that have come down the pipe from VHA making changes with regards to water regulations and stuff, which cost money to upgrade the water and the water systems and stuff like that. So we can bring that back with listings of that. I did find years ago when Jacob Ellis was still here, I found an old report of his where he brought all the projects to a meeting of what needed to be done and what the gas tax and stuff that could be used towards it, or community works fund that could be used towards it to have the projects come up. If that's the wish of the board, I can do that. We can incorporate, if you want a split of how much, we can incorporate that into the policy. Just know that it will change, we'd have to change it whenever the new ratios come out and stuff like that for your populations, because then that will change every 5 years, because we're basing it on 2021, so I think we're due for a new one coming up. So then that would change, and then the policy would be brought back if that's what you would like us to incorporate.
Fair enough, and I know you're very capable of crafting all of this, but going back to this simple aspect of when can we send you our ideas for projects?
Through the budget process. So we are going to be bringing something, we're meeting with a consultant next week. We're going to be looking at the new, fixing up our budget process. And then through that, we can have projects brought through to the staff and then brought through the process and then brought into the budget process as we do our financial plan. So kind of at the start of that, so we could incorporate it into there.
Not liking that idea, but I'll go to, my entire purpose of this is to have a meeting, either as a committee or as individuals with staff, so that when the project list is created, that it's not an us and them, it's us together collaborating on a project list. And if it's part of the budget process, that just makes it even more convoluted and difficult.
Yeah. So two things. One is part of the what's been presented in the report here is we'll come back with a update on the currently funded projects, because right now you will see, I think next week is our quarterly report, capital report. So that will list off all the status of all the projects that are underway. And so when we come back with the policy, which can and at this point in time would be recommended that we include percentages and you know, those are conversations that we can have at the committee here about what those percentages look like. We can bring forward some recommendations. And then on top of that, what we'll do is we'll bring the status of the existing funded projects. For the new listing there, we also will bring a bit of a snapshot of what some of the areas that we think would be considered. And then at that point in time, what we would like to do is have that committee conversation about what are those other projects and getting feedback. So what we wanted to find out as part of this process is through the policy development is, and I don't want to assume anything, but is it a request out that here's the criteria within the policy, what are the areas that you want to be considered, and we start that, and then we bring these all back to the committee for consideration in the sense of what those projects are and what they're funded. I heard today, and I think this is something we've been thinking is about future funding projects. So projects like a fire hall where I'd like my $1.8 million to go in 5 years from now. I'm not going to touch this for 5 years, and that's what that's going to be funded for. That's all up for consideration rather than taking $5,000 here and $3,000 there. But that'll be part of the policy. It'll be laid out in that policy there. So right now we're just trying to get that policy, the actual list. After we get that policy defined, if we move through that at next meeting quickly, we can have that information back to the committee and the electoral area directors here to be able to look at what those projects are. Once we know the percentage, if it's 5%, let's talk 5%. What's actually possible? Is it 20%? I don't know until you give us a direction on what that percentage is for the various projects.
Director Segal, your mic's still on. Did you have a follow-up?
Well, there's a motion on the
Yes,
floor
there
that
is.
I'd like to speak to.
Go for
But I
it.
also, I don't know how long Ben has had his hand up.
Oh, he's really
know if we
tiny
wanna
on my
check in
screen
with
here.
him.
I'll go to him next.
So I'm first?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm absolutely supportive of this. It'll come back in draft form for us to provide more input on and to ensure that it meets our desires around collaboration. I do just want to, I think it's really important to prioritize critical infrastructure projects across the region. And just to share, in my area, the previous iteration of gas tax and previous area director dedicated almost $900,000 to the roadside path that I've got going through Mill Bay. It's half done. I believe about half of that money has been used. Meanwhile, I have failing sewer systems, including one that has provincial infractions, that I would have much rather that money go towards sewer systems and be able to apply to the active transportation grants that Mott is desperate to give out. They seem to not get enough people applying for it. And so I depend on, I've only learned about all that stuff through the expertise of our staff. So I really, really depend on that understanding of the expertise of our staff of, I think about my own home renovations, the invisible stuff, you know, how much we spend on invisible stuff before we get to the fun things. But I need to know I flush my toilet and it works. And I need to know I turn on my tap and I get to drink clean water. We got to deal with that stuff first. And I think we can absolutely find a balance of collaboration.
Director Nicholson?
Thank you. So the previous comments just suggest clearly to me that there is a difference of opinion around how the funds ought to be used. And so I think it would be really helpful if you came forward with a policy that had a list of principles that we can discuss. And if we choose to disagree, then obviously we'll be looking for a more divided up evenly, or kind of thing, as opposed to, otherwise. So I think that's an important discussion we got to have.
Director Acton to close.
Well, you can always reallocate your funds. I had to do that too.
Don't forget me, Ian. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, you're just a little tiny guy on the screen in front of me. Director Martman, please go ahead.
So leave it to Director Acton to close. Interesting conversation. I'm really curious if this is the same conversation that occurred 10 years ago or more. And I'm favoring the approach to give direction about that we should be approaching this with the lens of being efficient and effective with funds. And I think those two terms lends itself to developing something that looks at the dollar amount in total, what we might be able to achieve through direction, through our direction as a group, but ultimately meeting the greatest number of our constituents. Because I think that's one of the things we struggle with when we put money towards very targeted groups. And I don't know if that's a high enough policy, because I think it comes back to, again, what are the principles out of this? Because certainly when you look at the breakdown of the table that shows the amount per electoral area, that shifts my mind into thinking of, wow, that should go to area H. And I think that that's probably a legacy in some ways of the gas tax in previous terms, and that we're perpetuating that thought. And I'm not saying it's the wrong thought. I'm just saying should a policy perpetuate that, or should the policy be at a much higher level to say be effective and efficient with the use of funds? And then we can talk about what fairness might look like. Anyway, so that's just my 2 bits. Thank you.
Thank you. And Director Acton, you had something further? Or were you done?
Well, we were just talking about efficiency, and I guess my question is, seems like we still got a lot of steps to go, and we're not even going to be seeing any of this money in the works. Was it like 3 years ago that we were supposed to be like when would we've been asking, where's the gas tax, and I feel like I've been hearing for 3 years, like, yeah, it's here, but we need to bring it forward. Like, is there a big delay, or how long is this taking?
Ms. Bowen?
Through the chair to Director Acton, we just got our first payment in, I believe it was November of last year, for this next round of gas tax. There was a delay with the province and with the federal government on the whole process, and because when the last one ended, they weren't sure if they were going to be offering another one or not.
So we have a payment already,
So we have one
but
point.
we're not
yeah.
ready to use it.
That's what we're trying to figure out, how the best way to spend it. Like, and like,
But
because
they
we
give us the heads up, like, it seems so.
Well, this is the heads up.
Okay.
And I'll just relate to folks that when this was brought forward 10 years ago, the resolution that came forward was 100% allocation via population, because that's how it's calculated. And it was only an amendment to that resolution that said, no, we'll put 20% aside for sub-regional bigger projects. So we're not talking about that today. We're talking about develop the policy, and we'll hash it out when that comes. So Ben, did you have something further? Your hand's still up, because I'm about to call a question.
No, thanks.
Does anyone want the resolution read again?
I have one more question.
Oh, geez, you popped up there, and seat 25's there again. Director Wilson.
Do you want to go ahead first?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Hang on, you go
I
ahead
have a red
first.
light. Yeah, it's okay. On one of your slides there, Tracy, you had a mention of something along the lines of capital or something design feasibility as one of the bullet points that the money could be used for.
Yes.
Yes, she did.
And I think
I wrote that one down.
Yeah.
Feasibility studies and detailed
Yeah,
planning.
and detailed planning. Is that what you referred to as far as some of the legacy or something, personal projects that we could use it for to cut down on borrowing? Because you mentioned that as well. My ears pricked up when you said.
Ms. Bowen?
Through the chair to Director Wilson. Yeah, I did say like they were trying, like we would like to see like this money be used instead of borrowing.
Right.
For stuff. So if there's projects that we could align it for, and if they fit the criteria, we can. Feasibility studies is a new one. They never used to allow us before in the last rounds to use it for it. So now that's just a new thing that they've added this. And
I think there was a capital design thing in there as well.
Design projects now eligible under all infrastructure categories as standalone projects.
Lovely. You and I shall talk about that. Thank you.
Ms. Miles Wilson?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to mention, so the committee and the board were briefed when we had the contribution agreement in front of us. So just wanted to respond to Director Acton's question and comment that they had to negotiate between the feds and the province. Then we had to sign the contribution agreement. So we knew the fall of last year that we were going to receive the payment. We received the first payment. I believe the second payment was at the end of March. And so now we're in a position where we have a reasonable amount of funds to feed into this next budget cycle.
Okay, does anybody need the resolution read? Ms. Boyd?
That it be recommended to the board that staff be directed to develop a draft Community Works gas tax funding policy.
Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, the motion carries. Next item is
Report from the Planning Strategic Initiatives Division regarding local area plans update for information.
Ms. Garnett, welcome.
Thank you very much. I have the slide deck on my screen, but you don't. You're fine, right, from the previous presentation? I'll just carry on. Okay, so this is a report for information regarding the local area plan step 3 implementation. So in March, we had a series of advisory planning commission meetings and we received really valuable input from the APCs. Those comments are still trickling in. We have the majority of them and they're being considered for inclusion in the draft LAPs. The plan is that updated draft LAPs will be available by May 15th, 2025. So what we're bringing to your attention today is consistent with the engagement plan that was approved last year. We're proposing an online public input opportunity. So we'll be doing a communications campaign to the broader public to be able to sort of have their say on the local area plans by viewing the drafts online and being able to respond to survey questions to sort of solicit additional public feedback now that the draft plans are substantially complete. So we'll be doing a series of print, social media, Plan Your Couch In, and other sort of our traditional sort of well-honed communications campaign from our various events. So the LAPs have been in development since approximately 2022, and we've done a significant amount of in-person community engagement. So the plan is now for this online opportunity.
Director Martman.
Thank you very much, and I know Ali's very familiar with Area H. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. And thank you all for all the work and the work that the APC's been putting into this. And I just want to voice the concern for Area H that an online survey, something for this at this point for the LAP, I have yet to see the Diamond, which is our local area plan, to really have a chance to look at this thing. And this is where, I don't know if this is the time and place, but this is where I think it is to advocate that we bring this to the Diamond Hall and let the people of the Diamond look at what the local area plan for the future and be able to, digest it, provide the feedback that I think could be valuable, as well as finally, putting this to the final, I guess, the final people that need to look at it. And I don't think online is going to make it up here. And yeah, I can't speak loudly enough to recommend having the time and the funds, resources to do that.
Do you want to respond?
Yeah, I can respond. I mean, staff aren't recommending that we do in-person engagement at this stage, and that's based on the amount of in-person engagement that we have done and at really significant opportunities. So from a planning perspective and a public engagement perspective, that opportunity for broad public input is most valuable in the building of a plan at the outset, at the vision and the sort of the general character. And we had a lot of in-person meetings in 2023 for the LAP Step 1, where we got feedback. We had the maps up on the wall of the LAP boundaries. We proposed draft vision statements and descriptions. We gathered information on special places. And really from, as I said, from that planning perspective on public engagement, that is the time to do those in-person events. We have and I will reiterate that we go back further even to the OCP ideas fairs and the community circles, where we also had significant engagement on the local area plans. In the last couple of years, the focus has been on engagement with advisory planning commissions because of the highly technical nature of the work. The alternate futures report, that was really got into a lot of very technical information that was more appropriate for sort of focused conversations with APCs. And we've continued to sort of build out the LAPs based on that, as well as our engagement with First Nations. And so at this point, our recommendation is this online opportunity, because really it's a matter of sitting down with the plan and reviewing it and providing that sort of thoughtful feedback. If it was the direction of the committee to go back to in-person, we would need to come back with implications on work plan and budget.
Follow up, if I may.
Yeah, you may.
Yeah, and thank you, and absolutely appreciate the perspective and the work that's been done. And I know that I know I'm being heard, so I don't feel frustrated that way, but I know my community has repeatedly been telling me that the communication that they're getting is not working for them. It needs to be in person, it needs to be there in front. So if they are going to have a chance to look at it online, when would be the first time they're actually going to have a chance to actually walk in a room, look at the maps, talk to somebody? Is that effort going to ever happen with a product at this stage or before we finalize? Would that ever happen for the community, where they'll say, oh, this is the output, this is the final completion of all the work over the years to get a LAP in place? Is there going to be a future time for them to walk in that room and go like, oh, wow, that really met our needs, or, oh, wow, this is some feedback?
I think staff just told us that isn't planned, that it would take direction from committee to make that happen.
Okay.
I see nodding.
Yeah, so this is for information. So at the right time, Chair, after this session, or after this information session, I would like to put forward something.
Okay. Oh, we have Ms. Breen coming forward. We don't actually have something on the floor, but...
Through the chair, if I may suggest, I have a staff report coming right after this on the updated OCP project charter. We were coming to committee to ask for support endorsement for a public information meeting on the OCP to the broader public later in May, similar to the meeting that we had last night with the APCs. And what I would like to suggest is that when I bring that report forward, that we add information in that meeting on the LAPs. It's not completely meeting the Director Martman's concern about being exactly in the diamond, but we could add to that presentation all of the draft LAPs and put forward the LAP maps in that meeting as a suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Breen. Did you hear that, Director Martman?
thank you, and I feel like they're always one step ahead of me.
Thank you. I've got Director Nicholson and Director Acton. Director Nicholson, go ahead.
Thank you. My APC met about this just the other night, and I think they have quite a few comments. How are we going to feed back to them whether their thoughts are incorporated or not?
Yeah, thank you, if I may, through the chair. Yes, we're looking forward to receiving those minutes. That'll be great. Our plan is to report back to committee in advance of reporting to the UBCM as part of the Complete Communities assessment. We have to report back by June. So we're anticipating in June bringing a report back to the committee. And then at that point, we can report on what changes were made as a result of the APC comments.
Okay, so the APC will know specifically why or why not they.
Yeah, I mean, we
their
would
thoughts
table
were-
it here. We wouldn't necessarily meet with the APC specifically, but we will table it here. And I would add too that in the APC meetings that were in person, we did respond to their comments. I mean, I know there was additional conversations following that, but we did try our best to sort of explain the context of the local area plan within the OCP as a larger sort of document. But yes, we will table a response to the APC comments to EASC when we report back in June.
And I have one other question, which I noticed last night when I was at the workshop at Cobble Hill. For the local area plan that's in the Eagle Heights, Cokes Island, but the land designations are essentially, they seem to be sort of what's there, but sometimes not. And I'm just wondering how those decisions, and I'm speaking specifically about the industrial park, because I know we had quite a discussion about the housing, the ones that are more residential, but what is an industrial area is actually a very mixed area. And I'm just wondering, when is it appropriate to think about what it actually should be in the moving forward? Because it's kind of, I don't think that discussion's happened is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, through the chair. Yeah, the land use designation maps that were on the walls last night are really part of the broader OCP. So that the land use designations are Schedule L of the OCP, which Ms. Breen will be presenting on sort of next. So, I mean, I think there's always opportunity to talk through the local area plan about that, but really it comes down to the OCP itself and that Schedule A. So perhaps, I mean, I'll be interested to see what the APC comments are with respect to that. But if there are concerns on Schedule L itself, then yeah, we should talk about that. Yeah.
Director Acton?
Thank you. Yeah, lots of engagement. So that's, I don't think we need to add any more. I think there's a bit of fatigue, and although, it's just a big project, so people don't quite understand the scope of it, where they had consulted and then it's happening again, and so there's that confusion. But what I think would be really lovely, and I don't know if you've thought about this, but just to wrap it up, I know when we had our design charrette in Shawnigan, the last thing was actually presenting it, and we did like a talk show format, and had a panel and people could ask questions, and people really felt like included, for those who didn't even know it had happened, because there's always lots of people that way, and think, oh, well, you just pushed this through, and how did this happen without me knowing? So then they get to at least see the wrap up, and people felt heard, and people felt excited, and like really embraced, the timing. COVID hit like 4 days later, but I think it would be really nice to do some kind of traveling roadshow forum of like, okay, this is how your input, this is what we've produced, and we're really excited and proud, and here you go. Is there, if you can consider that future engagement in that way? Or
Is that not what Ms. Breen was maybe going to be talking about in the next
Well,
bit?
perhaps to some degree, but I would just
not
add,
at the same time.
Yeah.
I would just add as well that the ideas book continues to exist as a sort of a documentation of all that we've heard and all of the engagement that has taken place. So that does exist. I think that's a really fun, creative thing that happened with Think Shawnigan, and that's great. I think depending on the direction after the following presentation by Ms. Breen, again, we would need direction from the committee if we wanted to go through an engagement phase of whether it was, pre or post adoption of the OCP or LAPs. We would need that direction and an understanding of impacts to workload and budget. But
But it also goes full circle because that's the input we hear from community is they don't actually know where their input went. Because they may not be following along every single step. So then it just closes that communications loop really nicely, but. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And just a final remark, and I bear some responsibility in this, and clearly my APC is not happy with LAP and GCP boundaries. There needs to be some further discussion. Clearly the parameters and criteria early on when I met as director with staff in the creation of these, my APC has challenged some of those criteria and how urban-centric a lot of the creation of this was, and so I think there's still some more work to be done. I know what Patrick said yesterday at the meeting in regards to the MOCP and the stage that we're at, but just want that to be, on the record and in the minds of staff. So with that, we have, this is an information item, and we have R8 coming forward now, and Ms. Breen, and, wow, look at that. Might get to my doctor's appointment. Welcome.
Sorry, Chair, to interrupt. I have no audio.
That's because there is none.
Thank you. I think the last thing I heard say was I hope to make my doctor's meeting.
Yep, that was it. We're having a little technical lag time here in bringing a presentation up. We're getting there. Here we go.
Good afternoon. Okay. I'm going to here we go. Okay. So, bylaw 4373 OCP for the EAs, all schedules except for Schedule B. The purpose today is to present the updated project charter for the OCP for the electoral areas and to request approval for a public information meeting. The project charter that's attached has these changes. It on the APC workshop and the APC referrals. Many of you were at the workshop last evening at Cobble Hill. Thanks for coming out. And the APC referrals are in process. That is for all schedules except for Schedule B, again, just to be clear. It added in the public information meeting, which we are suggesting to be held May 27th at Heritage Hall here in Duncan. And then also just advised EASC that the cost for all of these things is approximately $25,000. We actually have had a little bit more time to cost out specifically, and it's running a little bit over that, but it is within our core budget. We are suggesting that the public information meeting be held before the beginning of June and before the summer, for obvious reasons. It also extends the OCP timeline through to Q3 for second reading, and then adoption for Q4. That's what's anticipated. So they're the major changes to the project charter. The purpose of the public information would be to provide an opportunity. We're almost at the end. Invite the public in, come and see the poster boards, have a presentation for the whole thing, as Director Acton was saying, for a possibility for the LAP, so people could see it comprehensively, and provide the poster board display. And just a note to the committee that we have had online comments open on Plan Your Couch and for about 3 years now. And we do find there's a lot of spikes. As soon as we have a meeting, we get comments back in, and then it's just like a dead zone. Nothing happens for a long time. So being out in public definitely makes a difference, and it draws attention to it. And we work really hard to draw attention to get people to come out to those meetings. So proposed date is May 27th, location Heritage Hall. We're proposing from 4 to 6. And I'm just going to go a little bit on the fly here. I think we hear so often, particularly in the smaller rural communities, Director Martman has raised this previously, that it's hard because of either Wi-Fi systems or not as many people having computers, et cetera, to reach them, and also to have meaningful conversations with them. So we have tried very hard, and sometimes, despite a lot of efforts, we've had a couple of meetings in Area F and some in Satlam, where lots of efforts, and we get 10 people coming out to a community meeting. That doesn't mean a lot of people haven't heard that we're doing that work through our communication and our ads, and they're just not coming out. But there's a high ratio between the amount of costs and how many people are coming out to some of those meetings. So just and a bit of a diminishing return as you go along in a project. There's a certain saturation that happens with the public. When you're first going out and they first see OCP or LAP and it's brand new, we can garner and capture their attention. And after they see that over a while, period of time, we feel there's a certain element of tuning out. So just a little bit of comments on what happens as we go through the an multi-year engagement process. Anyway, that's what we're proposing, and we would be, although the LAPs are not complete, we could certainly put up the LAP maps, and we could add on to the presentation so for the public a status update for them. And I would suggest that to the committee for your consideration. And then I would also suggest that we can go back and kind of sharpen our pencils and look at what would be some of the best ways to go out and show the final LAPs in addition to the online survey. And we would come back to you with what would that look like, something a little bit different, a little bit more creative. But we'd ask you to give us a little bit of time to do that. So I don't know if that would help if we could, or at least it's another display in terms of the local area plans for the public and the concept of the overall OCP on the 27th. The directors may not see that it's, or feel that it's sufficient. The other possibility for consideration, and we can bring this forward in the staff report on the LAPs, is to either go sub-regionally in some areas. So that's another possibility, and we've done sub-regionally before. We'll provide that as an option coming forward, in addition to perhaps going into individual communities. But those are options coming forward. So for today, public information meeting, May 27th at Heritage Hall. That could be the OCP, and add in the LAP maps. And just a refresh here of the engagement and consultation. We did start in 2020. We had 4 large open houses just before COVID. That was the first time we really went out on the OCP. And then going through the process of several different ways, community circles, workshops, online meetings. We've kind of done everything, almost everything. And certainly, again, that's our experience. The biggest attendants are usually things that are early on in the process, that are more of less technical of nature. As soon as we start going into the more technical work, even though the meetings are open to the public, it's really the APCs that are attending those meetings and fully engaging. So, just to summarize, the APC referral period is current. We're requesting approval for a public information meeting on the 27th. After this, we would be again considering all the comments that are coming in from the APCs. The referral period will be updating the ideas book. We will come back to you before second reading with a summary of all proposed changes. And then we will go to second reading and public hearing. So recommendations today that the project charter for the OCP for the electoral areas be endorsed and that a public information meeting be held on the proposed CVRD bylaw 4373.
Do we want to add to that? Maybe we don't need to add to that the LAP inclusion in the public meeting?
Staff, we are understanding that that would be the case.
Okay.
And we will come back with another staff report in terms of additional engagement.
So I'm looking at the recommendation. I'm looking to the committee. I see Director Martman's hand up. Do we want to get this resolution on the floor? Is there any questions that might change this, putting this resolution forward at this point? Director Martman will wait a minute. Director.
Not for me.
No.
Nothing, I'm ready to move this.
Okay, I've got Director Acton here first. Comments first? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Breen, I've been saving my own input or recommendations, and then gonna listen to the conversation last night and go through this. And I'm kind of a last minute kind of gal, so I've got a list going. But when's the drop dead date from our input?
We
Recommended,
have
amendments.
So thank you through the chair to Director Atkin. The closing date for the APC is June 2nd, so we'd prefer to get all comments in. We did, in fact, get one binder last night from someone that had written comments in it, and we'll just go through that and make our notes. So don't feel like you have to go through and make an itemized list. If you've got stickies and you want to give it to us, we'll copy it out and we'll give it back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Director Nicholson.
Well, I'll move the recommendation.
Is there a seconder? We have a mover and a seconder. I didn't ask Director Martman, sorry. Director Martman, let me go to Director Nicholson first as the mover. Do you have any comment?
Just that I really liked the idea that we have a panel. You could pull some panelists from the APCs, and that's kind of fun. Would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, maybe we do it as a director's meeting.
Order. Jeez.
You can do it yourself.
Director Martman.
I leave mine on so I can keep talking.
Yeah, thank you very much to staff for this recommendation. And, I think sometimes I have to echo, though, previous comments about if you put it in the Citizen and you put it online, you'll reach very few people in Area H. We don't get the newspaper, and online is not what works in our community. So I will get the word out, but at the same time, we need to do better. Take 5, the Nanaimo Bulletin is what we read. We're special people up here. But I think the idea of a public information meeting, and I'm in promoting this, is just the tip of my iceberg. I want to have a meeting in every hall. I want to be shouting up and down that this is coming to an end. This is being completed. Here's your product. This is what you spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on, and hours of staff time and director time to completing. And so, I'm looking forward to your thoughts and options for doing that type of thing, and also bringing it to hall near a community near each of us. But if that can't be the case, I'll be advocating at least to bring it up to my area, and whether it's my town hall or whether it's another avenue or venue, I just think the more we do this, it's meeting the need of the community to hear what's happening at the CVRD. Thank you.
Ms. Garnett, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. If I may, your point is very well taken, Director Martman. I just wanted to add as a small detail, but in terms of our print campaign, we do target the different areas. So we've got South Cowichan Connector, the Cowichan Citizen, yes, but also the Lake Cowichan Gazette. So we're getting FNI, and then the Ladysmith Chronicle and Take 5 as well. So we do aim for a prime placement, full page ads, so we're not lost in these publications, because that is one way of reaching the audience. So thank you.
Great. Seeing no other hands, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. The motion carries. Does that take us down to question period in our very patient and stalwart gallery? Welcome.
Good afternoon. I'll keep it short so you can make your appointment. On March 19th, the ESC had a meeting, closed session meeting, midway in the agenda. And there was a bylaw enforcement report that was to come, and that did not make it to the video. You did not come back into a live session. So is that still available somehow? Did it just not get posted? And it's of interest for the community because it was on short-term, an update of the bylaw enforcement policies, short-term rentals, which will be coming to the ABCs, and it has come to, and we'll be meeting on it again, and the temporary use permits as well.
So this is really stretching my memory here, but I do recall a meeting in which there was a closed session of which I cannot confirm or deny the content of.
Fair enough.
And I'm having a couple of brain cells talking back and forth back there about the possibility that we did reconvene back into open, but we're unable to get a recording of that. I'm not sure whether it was a technical issue or a staffing issue, but I will follow up to find out what actually did transpire. We'll have a look at the minutes and see what happened.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, take care. Anybody want to adjourn this meeting? Moved, seconded, all in favor? Yay! Can I make it to Lake Cowichan in 22 minutes?